Oh, I am so sorry. I didn't see you there. What is up, diehards? How's it going, D-Gens, MMA fans, gamblers? We are rocking the baby blues here on a Monday. That's right. Cash in the diehard stimulus checks. It has been, what, like 6 episodes since we wore the blue shirt? It's been a rough run, folks. It has been a rough ride gambling here on the Die Hard MMA podcast. We don't hide from the losses, but damn do we celebrate the wins. We're coming off of a winning week. I hope everybody is doing well. UFC 279, maybe the most insane fight card we have had in a couple of years, to be quite frank. When you consider everything that went into that, and then the outcomes that we had, the fights that happened, the axe kick of Macy Barber's liver, my guy Chris Barnett pulling off the upset. Like, what the hell? It was such a good week of fights, and I'm so happy to come out with my skin intact because a lot of people absolutely could have gotten fleeced. Hope everybody's doing well. Loving the chat here. Do me a favor, guys. It is Monday Night Football. Y'all know that. And that means we got to work just a little extra harder during football season to make sure the show survives, on Pub Sports Radio. Thank you for hosting. The podcast gets buried under football content. So tonight more than ever during football season, just if you don't usually hit the like, do me a favor for your boy. Hit the like. Alawan Dream in the chat. Nate, round 4, sub 28-1. I saw your shout out on freaking Ariel Hawani's show, man. Thought of you immediately. That's incredible. Congratulations on the cash. That is glorious. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. Thank you so much for reminding me right off the top of the show, because you deserve all the credit for that call. Grateful Dude, Mike Harvey. We've got Spike. We've got Cerebral Sammy saying, first time catching the show live. Let's freaking go, buddy. Welcome to the show. Adam Fitzgerald. We've got Small World Lifters. That's a new name, I feel like. Small World, if I have missed you in the chat before, I apologize, but I feel like that name would stand out. So welcome to the show if it's your first time viewing. We've got Evan Campbell, all the regular names rolling in here. I hope everybody is doing awesome tonight. Let's have a great show. Speaking of having a great show, I have a fantastic guest for you guys. We tried to get the show together one time, and unfortunately it fell apart. We turned it around right quick, and we got him back on the pod. I am super excited to break down UFC Vegas 60 with none other than Sherdog's Keith Schillen. Keith, what's up, buddy? How you doing today?
What's up, brother? Dude, your energy is unbelievable. This is what happened when you have Chris Barnett getting a win. I expected you to do the front roll when you said you were winning. I mean, this is fantastic. Thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, my pleasure, man. No, if I had space, I absolutely would try. I'd probably kill myself in this little corner of the office I've got here decked out for the podcast.
Let me ask you this, though. I have a couple questions. What's this football you're talking about? I don't know what this weird sport. What is this you're talking about?
I'm not sure.
It's only MMA, right?
They skin an animal and then kick it through sticks. I'm not entirely sure, but people seem to like it.
All joking aside, we were supposed to be booked before you got me on. I apologize for the last time. We had this Tony Habib thing going on, but we actually. I mean, maybe if it was nobody ever wanted to see that person on the show, then maybe it would be a Tony Habib. But hey, I'm a fan of your work, man. I know you work really hard. I know you put a lot of work into this. So thanks a lot. It means a lot to me to be on.
Hey, you know what? My pleasure, man. I'm a fan of yours as well. We've been following each other on Twitter for a long time. It's one of those connections that just it's been right there. It just never quite got all the way connected. So I was definitely happy when we started talking. And you're one of I love the way you analyze fights. I think this is going to be an absolute treat for everybody tuning into the chat who may not know you or how you break things down. I know that gambling isn't always your thing, but the way you pick the fights apart is something that gamblers can use. And I can't wait to talk about this card with you.
Yeah, I do a show with Ben Duffy every week on the Sure Dogs YouTube page. And one thing a lot of gamblers, I mean, mostly all the listeners are gamblers. And one thing we always have to stress is like, we're not, there's a lot of great guys like you who play the lines. They know the odds and all that. We are straight a pick'em show. We have some things on Sure Dog. Jay Petrie has an article. Sean Sheehan has stuff. You want betting stuff, go there. I give my picks. If it helps you win, cool. If it helps you lose, then follow Ben's advice instead, you know?
Absolutely. And no, that's I love it. I love it. Because if you get somebody who's not necessarily thinking from a gambling lens, you can still put that information in a blender and find a way to bet with it. So I think it's great. It's gonna work. It's gonna work perfectly with the way we should bounce off of each other here. Real quick, for the people, I do just want to go ahead and address. I ran this poll out on Twitter. With the whole Johnny Walker submission thing, I had a week from hell last week. So like all of us in the content world were insane. You know about that, Keith, with the mix up of the fights and shifting everything around at the top of the card. Everybody was insane. My daughter got sick. So I've been dealing with like a sick home life family situation 4 nights in a row. I got like half the amount of sleep that I usually do. So I was cracked out. We ended up having to take my daughter to the emergency room. She's okay. We had to take her on Saturday because we thought she was getting worse rather than getting better, needed to get some meds. I didn't make Johnny Walker by submission official. And you guys know my rule. Integrity and the way that I bet and being open and honest and transparent with you guys is absolutely the most important thing to me. And somebody told me I should add it because everyone knew I bet it, and I talked about it all week on 3 different shows, but I forgot to put it on the tweet when I sent out the final card. I'm not going to add it, guys. I'm not going to add it. And I appreciate the love and I appreciate the support, those of you who think that I should, but the rule is if I don't tweet it, I'm not going to add it to the official record. So it's not going to go on there. A little unfortunate because I really want it on there. I want the credit for having it on there, but y'all know I bet it. Y'all know it cashed. I spoke about it last week, and a lot of you tailed it and made money off the read. So it's not going on the official record, and that's going to make my comeback just that much more amazing because I called the freaking Aljamain Sterling split decision, which was a ridiculous long shot that cashed. That was right when I got on with Superbook Sports, and I didn't quite know how to address betting lines that were not specific on Superbook Sports. So if it wasn't a Superbook Sports line, I didn't add it to my record. So since that was a split prop on DK, I was like, I'm not going to throw it on there. Yeah, so 2 gigantic hits that aren't actually on the tracked record this year. You guys know that, and the comeback is going to be epic. So here we go. Sorry, Keith. Didn't mean to.
I had Irene Aldana by upkick knockout this week. So
dude,
that's just a joke. It's just a joke.
No, I know. Anybody, there were people out there that had Irene Aldana by KO. They must have been tearing up the tickets. Like you're like, it's done. She got taken down in the 3rd round of this fight. Macy Barber's just gonna maul her for the final 3-4 minutes of this fight. That's the most insane comeback, and we've had a lot of insane comebacks. Like, how did that even happen? I've taken a liver shot before, and the way Macy fell over. That's accurate. Like your whole body just shuts down, but getting it axe kick from bottom, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it was 1 in a million.
You Irene Aldana backers, just count your lucky star. Go buy a lottery ticket this week because you earned it with that one. All right, everybody, let's get into the show. First off, I did mention at the top, Superbook Sports, obviously the sponsor for the show here. So make sure you check it out. Nice, fair lines, U.S. regulated book over here. My favorite. I love them. They're fantastic. And then we are going to go ahead and dive into the card. Now, they have, of course, got me all mixed up. I have my notes in order here, and they decided to move the bout order on me. Every time, Keith, every time. First fight of the night, Nikolas Motta taking on Cameron VanCamp in what should be, an absolute banger, right? Like, we've got Nikolas Motta coming in here. He's a Dana White Contender Series guy. Everybody was pretty high on him. He fell victim to the Contender Series fade. First fight in the UFC, they fed him to Jim Miller, and a lot of people, myself partially included, thought that he was going to be able to pass that test, thought he was going to get by Jim Miller. He's got fast hands, good boxing, seems durable enough, and then kid just got worked by a UFC veteran. Cameron VanCamp, he got jumped into the UFC, gang style, took a short notice fight up a weight class against Andre Fialho. I was live at that fight, actually, and heard the sound of this man hitting the canvas from the bathroom. had to get up and take a break. And it was so loud, I heard it from the toilet. Like, if that tells you how hard Andre Fialho hits. He's actually not that bad. I know a lot of people are down on Cameron VanCamp, but he's actually not so bad. He's got a slick ground game. He's underrated. He is big at 155. And I think that's a big thing that people need to realize. He's dropping to his home weight class of 155 here in this spot. So he's going to have a significant size advantage here over Motta. But that doesn't stop people from getting right back on the train. Motta's a decent sized favorite in this spot. And I think you're getting plus 160 on the much, much larger man. I worry a little bit about his durability. His chin's been cracked a couple of times, but his ability to get in there and finish seems to kind of make up for that issue. I'm going to go top all night tonight, folks. This is how it's going to work. Usually I try to dive in deeper on these things. Keith is so much better at analyzing and technically breaking down these fights. I'm going to go surface level, and then I'm going to pass it off to my guy.
Okay.
I want to hear your thoughts about this matchup, Keith, because this one has got me very intrigued.
Yeah, it's a really tough fight to pick right off the bat because, both guys coming off losses in the UFC debuts. Not, the ceilings on these guys is not too high. Motta definitely had a little more buzz coming in. He's a striker, really kind of like bob and weave style. Stiff jab. He hits hard. I like that he rips the body, but he can be a little trigger shy sometimes, which is concerning. I like that he has a strong kicking game, quick high kick, strong Muay Thai clinch, works the body with knees and elbows. But he's a weak offensive wrestler, and he's an even worse defensive wrestler. He doesn't have a single submission on his record. He does have a good get-up game, but you have to start questioning his chin because he was starched by Jim Miller, who's not really known for his power, and he's been knocked out 3 times already in his career. Now, VanCamp, as you mentioned, you look at his last fight, he was a big welterweight. I'm really worried about the weight cut down, but at lightweight, he's a monster. Size-wise, I'm talking about.
He staggered Fialho in round 1 too.
Well, I was going to mention that. He almost starts Fialho in that fight. He can fight out of both stances. He switches a lot. He uses a lot of movement, kind of like what we saw Linnaeus in the last fight, where he was kind of moving a lot, kind of using a lot of feints to kind of draw out attacks to counter. That's how he caught Fialho. Good calf kicks, nice teep kicks. Some defensive holes. He keeps his chin really high in the air. He hangs his hands really low, so he's very hittable. I wouldn't call him a wrestler, but he's a pretty good grappler. If he can get the fight to the ground, he's got 9 subs on his record. Again, like you, I'm worried about his availability. He was cracked, but Fialho is one of the biggest hitters in the welterweight division. But the reason why he got cracked was he was too aggressive. He overextended on a shot, and Fialho just countered perfectly. So as far as my prediction goes, I liked Motta heading into his last fight, but he looked really, terrible. He can still crack, and VanCamp has some serious defensive holes, but he's a much bigger guy. He'll have 5 inches of reach. He has power in his hands, and he should have a huge advantage on the ground. So I'm going with an upset right away. I'm going to take VanCamp by second round submission.
Keith, I love to hear you say that because that's the way I'm looking too. And based on the line right now, we've got Nikolas Motta minus 210, plus 180 on Cameron VanCamp. And I love it. I love it right off the bat. I was planning on taking a dog shot on this spot myself because all the things that you mentioned, the size advantage, I know that the durability could be a little bit of an issue. Maybe pairing the dog with the under, bet both of them is not a bad idea just in case he gets, flash taken out of there. I think more than likely when he wins, he finishes. He's got big power, and we've seen Motta already get, knocked out by people. If Motta's on the defense with the grappling, we know the submission upside for Cameron VanCamp is there. I couldn't agree more. I love it. I think that the dog shot to start the night off is really the way to go. We are in agreement, folks, for our first fight of the night. So thank you all so much. The users and the not users. Geez, what am I talking about? You guys are starting to roll in here. We got 70 live viewers. Thank you all so much for hanging out here on Pub Sports Radio. Like we said, smash the like button. Make sure you follow Keith. If you guys don't know him, you should. If you haven't followed him already, get on it. This is a guy you want to be following, especially on Twitter where he live tweets stuff out. Next fight up, we're talking about Tony Gravely taking on Javid Basharat, another really hyped up contender series fighter here in Javid. We're taking on Tony Gravely, a guy who I've had a rocky relationship with, Keith. It's been a little up and down for us. I used to have just a laser honed in read on Tony Gravely, and I was every time I bet on him, he cashed. Every time I decided to fade him, I was right, and he dropped the ball, and he cashed. And then in his last fight, I really expected his opponent to get one over on him, and he ruined my night. I went hard on Johnny Munoz Jr. I thought Johnny Munoz was going to outclass him essentially everywhere, and he caught him with that just gorgeous uppercut coming in on the takedown entry. And I was relying on those takedowns. I really thought that was going to be a big factor in that fight. So for him to get deaded in the first round, seconds into the fight, was just brutal. But Tony Gravely is sitting as a slight underdog here in this spot, plus 135. Javid is a minus 155 favorite. Now, this is not a Dana White Contender Series fade angle spot because Javid has gotten his feet wet in the UFC. He's 12-0, undefeated. He's a big dude, big, strong guy for this weight class, and everybody is all hyped up about him coming off the Contender Series. And then he took out Trevin Jones, another fighter I've got solid respect for. The way he handled that fight was fantastic. He's very well-rounded. He's one of these guys that constantly keeps his foot on the gas pedal, just kind of melts you over the course of the fight, mixing up the striking with the grappling, very creative with his striking, so you never know where things are coming from. 4-inch reach advantage, really small sample size, but he does have a 100% takedown defense, which I think is something that matters here against a wrestle boxer like Tony Gravely. We've got a lot of action coming in on Gravely as the dog this week. The number was much, much higher at open. It's already dropping down. Gravely seems to be the popular dog choice. And I'm tempted to kind of stand against the market here and take Javid when this line dips down low. Keith, I want to hear your thoughts on this one, see if I can get back on the horse here with Tony Gravely one way or the other. But I think Javid is legit.
Yeah. You know what the most surprising thing to me about this fight is how low down on the card it is. I mean, you got a guy like Gravely who really is like just outside the top 15 rankings. And then you add in an undefeated fighter and Basharat. Like, I'm just really surprised. I wonder if that's something to do with Basharat and the Afghanistan time zone or something like that. Like, it might be one of those reasons. But overall, really, really good. One of the best fights on the card. What surprised me about Gravely is how different he is in the UFC than he was on the regional scene. I mean, he was like a one-dimensional wrestler, kind of boring. He'd get booed at time. One of these guys just kind of smothering on top, sitting guys guard. Now he's this power puncher on the feet. He's got some serious power on both his hands. He just really explodes off that back foot, closes distance super fast, unloads combinations in the pocket. But he has some defensive holes. He's been clipped in the past. Like, not that long ago, he was deaded by Nate Maness. But he's a good, strong wrestler. He explodes through the hips. He's got good drive, good at getting to that second level of driving through hips. But one thing, when he gets tired, he makes a mistake of resting underneath and getting sprawled out on and kind of eating some unnecessary hammer fists, which is a little concerning. But when he's on top, strong top game, does really good to kind of control the position before landing shots. But because of how he fights, such wrestle heavy, such throwing heat on the feet, he kind of slows down the deeper you go into the fight. Now, Basharat, really good prospect, good striker, kind of a Muay Thai stylist. He can fight at both stances, very like poised, and one word I wrote down in my notes is he's calculated. You can see he's got good visions. One thing I always talk about all the time is the best strikers will switch their stances in mid combination, so they kind of change in the angles that throw in shots. You see something like Israel Adesanya does so much. It's really, and this is something that Basharat does. He's accurate. He's got some pretty good pop on his hands. Good jab that he works behind. One of the big things he gets by defenses is he wins the hand battles. You see a lot of hand grabbing with him, and then he kind of goes around it with shots. I love that he digs the body, which is a big part of his game. Calf kicks are also a big part of his game. Teep kicks up the middle. And he's also one of the guys who actually checks kicks, which is like a rare thing in MMA. The one thing about his striking that worries me is that he can have low output sometimes. And he actually almost like fights down to the level of his opponents, and just kind of cruises at times. Something that we've seen like Hakeem Dawood do in the past. That's a little worried. He kind of keeps his head on the center line a little too much, keeps his chin a little high for me, hangs his hands long, a little too confident in that. He will wrestle, though. He'll wrestle a little bit. He's not an explosive through hips guy, just one of these guys who kind of like create a scramble and win the scramble. Even if he'll like catch a leg kick or something like that. But on top, really good top control, like constantly working to advance the position, good ground and pound. He has 6 submission wins, and he showed in his last fight he can go hard all 15 minutes. So Basharat, he's going to need to pick up the pace, especially against a guy like Gravely who will fade late. That's something that can be such a tool for him. he's going to have to avoid the takedowns and especially the big haymakers from Gravely. But I think the further this goes on, the more I'm going to start favoring Basharat. So I expect him to really jab and leg kick Gravely a lot. Give me Basharat by decision.
I'm right there with you, Keith. I love Javid here. And one of the things I know, again, you don't always, do the sports betting thing, but one of the things is the betting line, right? Like if you've got Javid as a 2-1 favorite, that doesn't feel great. Laying $2 to win $1 is not fantastic, but all this love coming in on the other side, all this money coming in on Gravely as a dog, we got minus 155 now. Let's see where this goes. I'm going to sit tight. If we get minus 145, minus 135, I don't know if it's going to get that low, but I completely agree with you. I think Javid is the side, and I think that it's either a late finish or a decision as he kind of out technicals and uses his reach and his size to go ahead and pick Gravely apart from the outside. I wouldn't be shocked. Gravely's a guy that I've always tried to hit that round 3 sprinkle against whenever I fade him because of the way he slows the longer the fight goes. Would not be shocked if Javid got him out of there deep in that 3rd round. All right, everybody. We are 2 fights in, and we are having a good time. Next up, Keith, they're killing me. They're absolutely killing me. So I don't know how in tune to the lore of the Die Hard MMA podcast you are, Keith, but It is a well-known fact that I am in love with Gillian Robertson. She was,
I can see why.
She was my first ever fighter to come on my show. I had Juan Adams and Gillian Robertson that when I just had barely started the podcast, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure what I wanted to be. I kind of was like, maybe I'll go the Ariel Helwani route. I'll do some fighter interviews. And so Gillian came on the show, knew nothing about her, tried to do an interview with her. It did not go well. I had no idea what I was doing, and I feel bad to this day. But everyone knows I got a thing for redheads. I'm married one. My wife is a legitimate redhead. So I made a joke.
You brought me on the show?
Yeah, exactly. That's so I make a joke one time about, loving Gillian and loving the red hair. And ever since then, apparently she's my girl. I'm in love with her. It's one of those things where if you fight it, it gets worse. So I just kind of steered into it. And now I think she has me muted on Twitter because people have like taken it a little too far. I actually feel bad. I hope I meet her at a fan expo one day so I can apologize in person. Because I wanted to do
I'm an American and I married a Canadian, so I'm in the same boat, man. So
there you go. So and that's I always talk about being an honorary Canadian, and I always cite my love of Gillian for that. But the other thing is, I like Mashka, man. I love this girl. She is the right kind of crazy. And I cashed a big couple tickets with her first 2 UFC fights. And so she's found a fondness in my heart. If there was ever a spot for me to be a simp, it's on both sides of this fight. I love both of these girls. So picking between them is going to be really tough. Now, Gillian apparently has finally gotten away from that whole traveling, Ronin style fighter. She found a home at a gym and is working with a head coach finally, it sounds like, which I think is a great move for her. I think she needed that. I think she needed the structure. She needs the training partners. So I think we can expect maybe some growth here from Gillian Robertson. But what we have seen is that her striking is a real work in progress, right? At range, she really just does not know what she's doing. And she's slow. That's a big thing. She wings those kicks out there nakedly with no setup, with no recovering. A faster fighter that knows what they're doing on the feet is going to be able to counter those and make her pay for that. And we've seen Gillian doesn't like getting hit. Anytime someone goes off on her on the feet, she shells up poorly. She doesn't react well. She needs the fight to be on the ground, but she sticks to you like glue, Keith. If she can get on you, there's no getting Gillian off of you. The throat cuddles are imminent. But when she gets bullied by somebody, if somebody is physically stronger than her, she does tend to kind of shell up and goes into a defensive hole. And we've seen it time and time again. If you can outmuscle Gillian, she'll play off her back. And she's a terrible nail. She's a great hammer. She's a bad nail. And that makes it hard for me to bet on her. Now, Mariya Agapova here in this spot, similarly, not quite similarly, she's insane. I love it. She's fast. She's aggressive. She hits hard. She apparently has a little trouble pacing herself, I guess is a good way to put it. I don't know that she has gas tank issues, Keith. I think she has pacing issues. I think that's something that she can work on as she develops as a fighter. And she apparently completely neglected her ground game. I actually had to bet against her last fight. She got tapped out on the ground by a much better grappler. And this is kind of the UFC giving her that next step, right? It's a next test up. Did you work on your grappling? Is what this fight kind of feels like to me. Now, given that distinct grappling advantage, Gillian is lined as a slight favorite. It's not a big line, but she's currently minus 140. The comeback on Mariya Agapova is plus 120 as an underdog. And I'm super excited about this fight. I think we can see a finish here. Violence, my guy Mushroom in the chat saying under 2.5 in violence. I think we could see a finish here. Absolutely. What do you think of this matchup, Keith? And who do you like?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of pressure on both these fighters because the loser really could get cut. So that wouldn't surprise me. Gillian Robertson, she's such a minus athlete, as you said. Like you talk about her slow, she's like, I don't think she'd be good at any sport. like she wouldn't be a good basketball player, soccer player. And for a long time, I gave her a pass on her striking because she was so young when she was like 23, 24 in the UFC. I'm like, oh, she has so much time to improve her striking. And then it just kind of, after years now, it just hit me like she's never going to be a strong striker. You mentioned she's slow, but she also she throws arm punches. She doesn't really generate any power. She's very hittable. She lacks head movement, but her kicks are her kind of her striking weapon. But she really just throws kicks to kind of disguise and kind of use the kicks to follow in to get into her range. She's got decent entries, though sometimes she'll shoot with no setup, shoot too far away, and she'll be desperate and kind of overextend. But like you can't make a single mistake. You throw a kick at her or something, she'll catch a kick, she'll dive at something. I've seen her make some poor fight IQs when she threw like a flying armbar against Talia Santos, who's a really good grappler herself. A lot of people talk about how good Gillian Robertson's overall grappling game is, and I don't think she's an overall good grappler. I think she's a top side grappler. If she's on top, she's very good. Because one thing about her, she's really smart in that she emphasizes position over submission, which is ironic for me just to say she's really smart as I just kind of bash her fight IQ, but it's more of in that zone, in that position that she's very comfortable. But if you put her on her back, she'll kind of play that BJJ game where she's tossing up submissions instead of kind of using space to try to get back up. But if she's on top, she got some slick back takes. She has 6 subs in her career. Agapova, she's only 25, so she definitely has room for improvement. So like it's hard to kind of analyze someone like that because they're at that age where they can make big jumps. She's a southpaw. She has some raw tools. She's got some quick hands. As you mentioned, she's got a little pop in her hand. She likes to kind of a brawling, but she has like some defensive holes. She circles to her opponent's power. Kicks are not really part of her game. She's more just like a strong brute kind of fighter. She can get the fight to the ground. She'll catch kicks. She'll kind of just bull rush, but she will shoot, but she doesn't really set it up. If she gets on top, she does advance position. I like that. She's got some heavy ground and pound, but she's a weak defensive wrestler. I mean, Marina Moroz looked like freaking Jordan Burroughs out there taking her down over and over again. She's similar. Like she'll toss up submissions, but she wasn't even coming close to getting submissions. And I said this on my show, and I hate saying this because I really hate it's almost like a character thing, but I wonder if she's a front runner. When she's way better than her opponent, she looks really good. And when everything's going well, but when she starts getting a battle and it starts getting hard, she seems to fold. Like she doesn't have that thing inside her. So I think you said Robertson is like a negative, which they negative 130 to negative 140 favorite. This is a test for Robertson. She can't beat Agapova. She really should be cut. I just think this is a really good stylistic matchup for her. I expect her to kind of get the takedowns, to wear out Agapova, as you mentioned, whether it's pacing or gassing. We've seen her tire out, and you got a strong grappler like Robertson on your back. I think she catches Agapova. I'm going to say she does it early. I'm going to take Robertson very first round submission.
Wow. Okay. Bold call here from Keith with the first round sub. Hey, I don't mind it whatsoever. I think this is such a binary fight that you can make an argument for either women because If Agapova has made the improvements she needs to, if she can keep the range, get her hips back, I think she eats Gillian up at range and probably makes her quit and gets a TKO. Similarly, if Gillian gets on top of her, I don't see how Agapova goes 15 minutes with Gillian just kind of stapled to her back. So I kind of like the violence look here. I know it might be, maybe a little bit overpriced because everybody thinks that, but I do see a finish kind of whoever is winning this fight. And I don't mind whichever side you choose to take. Kind of makes sense to me. I guess my thing is I think that Agapova has a higher ceiling than Gillian, so this is going to come down to the improvements
I agree with that.
made. This is going to come down to the improvements they've made in their off time. I think, Gillian probably should win this here on Saturday, but if Agapova has really put the work in over these last couple months, she has been, doing my Instagram stalking. She is posting pictures in the gi. She's doing her jujitsu. She's working on her wrestling. How fast is she going to catch up is really the question. So I'm going to go ahead and say Gillian, but I don't think I'm betting it. I don't think I'm going to lay chalk on Gillian here in this spot. It also could be a really good live betting opportunity, guys, because for anybody who's watching this fight unfold, if you start to see Agapova fade, jump in on Gillian. Even if she's like a minus 150, minus 175, once that gas tank is gone, remember Conor McGregor, like as soon as these fighters are tired, they're not the same anymore. Agapova will fold if Gillian continues to lean on her once she's tired. So I can see this as a good, solid live betting opportunity. Make sure she can get out of round one, then pile in on Gillian if it looks like Agapova is getting tired.
I think that's a good point you said about the ceiling is high for Agapova based on her age. Like 3 years from now, she could be top 10 in the division, or 3 years from now, she could be completely washed out at MMA. Gillian, this is what she's going to be. I think it's kind of safe to say. She's going to be a lower level UFC talent.
I think, hate to say it, it kills me, but I do think that Gillian might end up being a bit of a gatekeeper where she'll be middle of the road. If you're new, if you're young, if you're building, she's going to take you out. And honestly, she'll probably finish you. She's going to be a women's MMA finish record holder probably for her whole life, but I don't think she's ever touching gold. So yeah, I think Agapova in a couple years, if they run this one back in a few years, Agapova probably starches her. All right. Moving right along, everybody. We have got another good one coming up here next, and I forgot to switch the tab over, so bear with me here. All right. Now we are talking about Trey Ogden taking on Daniel Zellhuber, and I really did try to get rid of the anime ad playing along the bottom, but there's no X for it. Sorry about that. It comes with the territory of using a site like this for the matchups. So Trey Ogden taking on Daniel Zellhuber, another contender series type of situation. I'm just going to go ahead and start with the fact that I got a message from a fellow bettor, a fellow podcaster, a guy I super respect. Shout out to Dan Levy, the host of Half the Battle. We were talking about this fight, and we were kind of in conjunction thinking that this Zellhuber kid is special. He reminds me of almost an Ignacio Bahamondes type. Super long, very rangy, knows how to use the space, good kicking game. He knows how to grapple when he needs to. We've seen him kind of panic wrestle in that first fight on the Contender Series where he gets in on the body lock to kind of slow the pace down, stay in the fight. But he's a young kid, Keith, and this is where this whole thing kind of comes back, comes crashing down for me. These young kids that are hyped up off of the Contender Series, they make mistakes. We're going to watch this guy grow up in front of us, and I think he's going to be a big deal. But at 23 years old, making his UFC debut, undefeated, 12-0, this is a tall order. It's a big step up in competition. Can he handle the bright lights here? Training out of gyms like Extreme Couture and Tiger Muay Thai, one of my favorite combos of all time. You can expect he's getting some great instruction, some great training partners, big reach advantage here in this spot. Extreme Couture Fight Week, by the way, they're going to be all over this entire card. So many Couture fighters here on this one. Trey Ogden comes out of Glory MMA, former Fury FC champion. I like this guy's jab. I like his lead check hook. He's got good solid leg kicks, and I love how he goes to the body. He works his opponent's body, and he's really actually a primary grappler. Like, he strikes really well and then changes levels on you when you're not really expecting it. The submission defense checked out. Against the Monkey King in his last fight. He's a BJJ black belt, and he's got a sick guillotine on him. I actually really like that. Unfortunately, he is another one of these guys that can take that bottom position, and that kind of scares me here in a fight where I've only seen Zellhuber really be able to kind of outmuscle people and take them down. I'm worried Trey Ogden ends up on his back, and if that's the case, Zellhuber's the better striker. He's longer. and he's more technical. He's also potentially the stronger of the two fighters. And if Ogden accepts that bottom position, it's going to take that armbar from guard for him to pull off the upset. I'm going to lean favorite or pass here with Zellhuber. What about you, Keith?
Yeah, so I want to say this about Ogden. In his last fight against Jordan Levy, he lost a close decision. I actually scored the fight for him. It was not a robbery.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, it wasn't a robbery or anything like that, but he's really big for the weight class. My one issue with his strike, well, I have a lot of issues, but one strike is a negative. He throws a lot of single strikes. Like in the fight against Jordan Levy, he was looking for the right hand like way too much. As you mentioned, he can dig the body, which I like. Throws a lot of kicks, doesn't check kicks, and like he lost a striking battle to Jordan Levitt, who kicked him in the legs like 200 times in a row. And like, come on, dude, can you check one, please? He will. You mentioned he will look for a takedown, but without much setup, kind of overextends, very like a Michael Chiesa style, where he's like using his long range and like reaching and extending. Where he did have good takedown defense though, but when he was taken down, he struggled to get off the bottom with Jordan Levitt. He did show some strong submission defense, not getting submitted by against like Jordan Levitt. And you mentioned he has 11 subs on his in his record. And you mentioned his guillotine. If we don't forget, he had Levitt in a submission. I think it was the second round, or maybe it was the first round.
It was the early first round.
Okay, first round. Okay, sorry. Jordan Levitt was saved by the bell. Like he was caught. But he gassed out late, which is a little concerning. In the third round, he got taken down. Really didn't. I mean, he was completely toast. I apologize if I mess up Daniel's last name. Zellhuber. He's only 23, which if you've ever watched any of my shows, like I always stress this. Totally agree with what you said. When you're young, your first tough test, you always have that early career loss. And you're like, man, how did that guy lose that fight? But the other thing about that age, it's the age where I just said it a minute ago. Like they become completely different fighters by the next one. Like they are so they can improve and jump. I mean, you got a guy who's 35. He's not going to show much improvement. A 23-year-old can, as you mentioned, long and lengthy. He wants to work from distance. Uses feints really well to draw attacks. He's got quick hands, nice snap on his shots. And what I like about it, at 23, he really has to come into his power. So he's already showing power at 23. Like he could be a knockout artist when he's 26, 27. I also like that he goes to the body. He doesn't like being pressured. And some of that is because he voids with shoulder rolls, which doesn't work really to deflect shots. Like we saw that actually with Danielle Wolf. And it because boxing, it works in boxing, but boxing's stance is so different that they're bladed and they're on an angle. So your shoulder kind of leads. So you can kind of use it as a weapon. Well, straight on MMA, it doesn't really work as much. Plus, it doesn't look good for judges. And then when in boxing, you can kind of go the Philly shell with the big gloves. It doesn't really work. So you can tell he has a lot of boxing rounds in him. He needs to change that up a little bit. He also brawls a little bit too much for my liking, especially for a guy who's so good at distance. He's got really good kicks. Obviously, really good kicks, good calf kicks. But he throws some naked ones. But I love that he throws such an easy high kick, and I love that he was throwing the question mark kick. Like he'd go down to the leg, and then question mark kick over the top. Strong Muay Thai clinch. You mentioned the throw he hit on the Contender Series. Good ground and pound. He's got 2 submission wins, and the biggest thing I like about this kid is cardio is a weapon for him. He's a builder. What I mean by a builder is someone who gets stronger each minute that goes on, where the opponent's fading, their output's going up, and when he's kind of getting more comfortable as the fight goes on. This is a tough one, like you said, because there is a step up for Zellhuber, and Ogden has that just pure raw old man power kind of thing going. Plus, he's a submission threat. But I'm with you, man. Give me a 23-year-old who's making that I think is going to make big improvements. I think he's got the gas tank. I think the later the fight goes on, the stronger he's going to come on. Give me Zellhuber by decision.
Okay. I like it, Keith. And this is a spot, guys. This is the Contender Series fade spot, and it's a specific angle. Those of you who have been on the show for a long time know the angle. I'm going to repeat it for the people who maybe haven't caught on just yet. It's not just we hate Contender Series fighters, we fade them all. No, it's their UFC debut, when it's their first fight in the organization coming off the Contender Series, when they are favored over a fighter with UFC level experience. And that's what we got here. We've got a guy who has one UFC fight. Even though he lost it, he's been under the bright lights. He's felt it. He's experienced it. He's got that level up, and the opposition comes in favored over them anyway. You blind bet the dog in these spots. That's my angle, and I have gotten away from making that a blind play. I'm still tracking the angle to make sure the blind play is something that's effective, because the angle demands that I take a shot on the dog here in this fight. And quite frankly, guys, I don't want to. I like Zellhuber. I'm not going to bet against him in this spot because I think he is fantastic. And I really think he's got a massive ceiling here advantage on this opponent that he's got in front of him. He's got a gym advantage, the height, the reach, honestly, everything kind of goes his way. The only thing that worries me is that he's a young kid and he could slip on a banana peel and find a way to lose this fight. Totally possible. Could happen. It's MMA. We just saw someone get axe kicked from bottom. So he could lose this fight, and I'm not going to lay the wood on him because of that reason. But I just want to be honest with you guys. The angle says we should be fading him here. I'm not going to do it. All right. And we move along. Another awesome women's MMA fight. We've got Loma Lookboonmee welcoming UFC newcomer Denise Gomes. Jeez, not Dennis. My bad, Denise. That's my bad. So we've got Denise Gomes coming in here against fan-friendly Loma Lookboonmee. And I mean, what's not to love about Loma? She's a little undersized in the division. She's so cool. She's so cool. She's fun. She's always happy. She's violent. She throws those knees. Her Muay Thai clinch is so awesome. It's fantastic. I love everything about her. We've seen that she struggles with these women that are, true UFC caliber sized women for this weight class. That can be a problem for her. People that can wrestle, take her down, overpower her, control her. That's the problem. But if you're talking just a striking matchup, you better put your boots on, because she is more than happy to contend with you in that kind of a fight. It's another debutante, another Dana White Contender Series fighter stepping in here, bringing on this UFC level talent. And I'll be honest, man, I kind of like what I see from Denise in general. She's another fighter who I think comes from the Contender Series that is going to have some upside. I just don't know if she's ready for Loma Lookboonmee. She's heavy on her feet. She knows how to plant. She's got a hard, powerful right hand. She really does tend to kind of disrespect smaller fighters. She overpowers them, bullies them, walks them down. She's got a big left kick. She will have a 3-inch reach advantage here. This is a fight that I honestly expect to be kind of close, Keith. If we play this thing out at range, I think Denise Gomes can use that size, use that reach, and have some effective striking where Loma may not be able to touch her. The way she kind of walks forward, heavy on her feet, Muay Thai style, I worry if she'll be able to kind of play that range game with Gomes. Now, Loma does have the experience. Obviously, she's got all those Muay Thai fights. She's super high level there. So if you're going striker for striker, it's hard to pick against Loma Lookboonmee. I will pick her to win the fight, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if this goes to a split decision or something.
Yeah, this is a fantastic fight. I think Gomes is a great addition to the UFC, and Loma's one that I've really liked. The biggest thing you mentioned about Loma is just she's so undersized. I mean, she really is an atom weight fighting at strawweight. She's a decorated striker. She's a multi-time Muay Thai champion, and you see that the way she fights. She's fast all around, quick hands, fast kicks. Teak kicks up the middle are kind of like her bread and butter. Despite being undersized, she can battle in the clinch as long as it's not like a super strong fight. I mean, like you go back to like the Jin Yu Fry fight, she was winning the clinch battles against Jin Yu Fry and beating her up. And that's because she really understands that how to frame and to land small shots in those frames. She blasts with knees, blasts with elbows. She's got underrated power for her size. I like that she started adding a little bit of wrestling against Sam Hughes, which kind of just can keep her opponents a little honest. But she gets taken down way too much for my liking because of not coming from any kind of grappling background, especially wrestling background, and then being undersized against. I mean, she was undersized against Jin Yu Fry, who's also
it's hard to do.
Yeah, who's also a former atom weight. Gomes is coming in on short notice, which is it was supposed to be Diana Belbito, so that's a little concerning. But there's a lot to like on film. I mean, she's a kickboxer. She's a pressure striker, good output. She just marches down her opponents, good head movements. She does pillar a little bit, which I'm not a fan of. But when she starts sliding her head out of range and kind of come back with counters, she's really sharp. She's heavy on her front foot, which is – can kind of get her legs kicked out. But the good thing about being heavy on your front foot is you generate a lot of power because your legs are right there and you kind of explode off them a little bit. She whips her overhand right. She hits it really hard calf kicks, really good high kick Something that Daniel Cormier pointed out in the broadcast, like, man, she just landing the high kick with such ease. She disguises it really well. Threw way too many spinning attacks on the Contender Series. But she kept doing the stupid same spinning wheel kick. But again, that might be trying to get a knockout, trying to get a contract. But she's physically strong. I didn't see too much of her grappling, but she was hitting switches when defending takedowns, and she was just like lifting her opponent's leg up really easily. When she was taken out, she understood that's not where she wants to be. She was popping up immediately, and she just showed a really good cardio. Like her output was coming up. She was kind of really flowing. I like both of these fighters. I think Loma's more technically sound. She's a little faster, but Gomes is bigger. She hits harder. That's why I'm going to go with another upset. I think we're going to have some fun, wild exchanges. I think Gomes is going to do more damage. Give me Gomes by split decision.
Keith, I love it. And my guy Low T City Ortega in the chat saying the split decision prop. Yes, both of you. Yes. I think we've got a very close, very competitive fight here. If you want to play that split decision prop, it's a degenerate prop. They always give you awesome odds on it. This is a fight that's got split decision written all over it. And I've got huge questions about Gomez's grappling. Keith, she is so much bigger. What's that?
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
If we had an atomweight division, would Loma be the champ?
Atomweight division, Loma would be. Honestly, she might be. I mean, Jinyu Frey has made some big improvements recently. That would be a competitive fight. I think Jinyu might be able to out wrestle Loma, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean,
Tisha. Jeez.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say Tisha, but Frey got beat up by Loma. It wasn't that close.
You're right. I'm sorry. I totally spaced
Tisha would probably
in that fight.
Tisha's up there in age though. Like I don't know if she could still make it. She probably, when you look at it, you think. But that's still a tough cut at that age.
You know, she may have added so much muscle at this point. I don't know if she can make 105 anymore. If she could make 105, my money is on Tisha.
The only reason I wanted to mention that is like that's the one thing going against Loma because like instantly, if we had an atomweight, she'd be a true contender. That's just the one point I wanted to make. Sorry, and
it's so ridiculous to me when people say that size doesn't matter. Like, no, there's weight classes for a reason. And these
course.
105 girls that are fighting at 115 in the UFC, they're at a massive disadvantage. Loma's fantastic. And God forbid, if you hit someone with a shrink ray and they both weigh 105, good luck muscling this girl to the ground. Have you seen her? Her thighs are like running back thighs. Yeah. Like she is so powerful. If someone's weighed naturally the same as her, I think they'd have a real hard time taking her down. Yeah. But because she's fighting at 115, these girls that have an extra 8 pounds of muscle on their body, yeah, they can get her there. And that's something I've got big questions about Gomez grappling. Because if she somehow has wrestling in her back pocket, she could be a runaway favorite for this fight if she comes in with any type of grappling chops. So yeah, I don't mind the shot on the dog whatsoever. I don't mind the split whatsoever. From a betting perspective, I do think this is dog or pass. Like I said, I think I'm going to pick Loma to win just as like a straight pick. But I would not be laying that price tag on the money line betting wise. I like that we kind of line up on that. There's some really interesting dogs this week.
We might have disagreed on the winners, but we're pretty close on the looking at the fight the same way. I do this all the time. I swear I preach this all the time. You'll never hear me brag about picking a winner correctly unless I picked how it went. Not even like submission, but like if I'm saying, oh, this guy's gonna wrestle and win, and the guy knocks him out in the first round, like you'll never hear me brag about that win. Because I picked a winner right, but did I really pick the fight right? No.
But you broke the fight down completely wrong and didn't get any of it correct. You just got the guy that raised his hand right.
Yeah, exactly.
See, it's funny because with betting, it's almost the opposite. Like you've got to just be happy to take the win. Like when you get the right side, you take the win, you run, you got the money. But I'm kind of the same way, Keith, because I'm like, that was not what I saw. That was not at all how I thought the fight was going to play out. So I kind of think the same way you do with that. And honestly, the nights I make the most money are nights where I can kind of pull out the crystal ball and like read the script off before it happens. I called Brandon Moreno beating Davison Figueiredo by submission, and I played the round 3 prop when it happened. So I hit the dog, I hit the sub, I hit the under, I hit the round 3 sprinkle. It was like a plus 20 unit night, just piles of money because I got one fight right all the way down the line. Those are the nights I really tend to do my best work. And that's why I'm kicking myself, because I let that Johnny Walker spot sail down the river last week and I didn't make the money on it. I had the round 1, I had the sub, I had the under, I had Johnny, and the only thing I did was bet Johnny on the money line.
Yeah, he was the underdog himself too.
Yeah. No, it was a sweet spot that I completely missed on. So I'm chomping at the bit to find another good one here coming up here pretty quick, Keith. It's making me hungry. Next fight up, we got another ladies event. Aspen Ladd coming back, taking on Sara McMann. And seriously, this buried memory game needs to start paying me for these free advertisements I'm giving them here. Get your crap together, Tapology. All right. So
I don't want to be that guy to say, hey, you have a Sherdog person on and not knowing using Sherdog.
Keith, I pulled up Sherdog, and the only reason that I'm still using Tapology, I was going to use Sherdog for you.
It's okay, man. It's okay.
They don't do the head-to-head thing. When I pulled up the card, the main event has both pictures on it.
I get what you're saying.
But besides that, it's a single fighter link. So, like, you can't have both people on the screen. I know. He's going to give me shit for not using the right website.
I don't have anything to do with the Fight Fighter. Jay Petrie and those guys do a great job. I have nothing to do with it.
No, I hear you. It's just for the sake of the show, I'm using Tapology because it looks better. I was going to use Sherdog because I actually personally like how Sherdog looks better. I use Sherdog myself whenever I'm like looking up the fighters and breaking down the fights. Cool, so I entirely planned on using Sherdog for you tonight. All right. So this fight, back to the action here. I have a confession to make to you guys. Anybody that's been watching the show for a bit already knows this. I went through a phase of my life where I thought that when I got cold feet, I needed to hedge out of a bet. If I made a big bet and I read the fight well, and then Saturday came around and I just completely had changed my mind on the outcome of that fight, I would bet the other side and get my money back. I'd be like, you know what? I'm just going to wash it. I'm going to get out of there because I don't feel the same way I did on Monday. Both times I've done that, Keith, it has bit me in the ass. I was right the first time. Never should have gotten off the read, but it's cost me money in the long term. Now, both times that happened, it was against Aspen Ladd. Folks, I am terrified of this woman. I don't know what it is, but I am scared to death of Aspen Ladd. And I think it's another situation where her current is not meeting her ceiling. Like, I think she's going to be a monster. I honestly think that Aspen Ladd has the capability to just be a destroyer here in the UFC. And every time I go to these opportunities to fade her, I've been right. Both times I've been right. But by Friday, I'm shaking in my boots. And I'm like, oh, my God. Like, if Aspen Ladd comes out and she fights just slightly a better game plan, she wins. And so, I have a hard time betting against Aspen Ladd. The way that she kind of cranks up the intensity as the fight goes on, those banshee screams when she's on top of people, pounding them with her ground and pound, like, I just think she's always got a get out of jail free card. She could be down 2 rounds and it does not matter. This woman can dig deep and destroy you in that 3rd round. And honestly, we've seen Sara McMann collapse in the 3rd round multiple times. This is a round 3 sprinkle spot. This is an Aspen Ladd spot. If she is at all on point, you got to watch the weigh-ins. You've got to watch her and see if she makes weight without dying, on the box of shame there. But if she can make weight, I don't see why she can't stand physically with someone like McMann, who at her advanced age is eventually going to be slowing down. And especially with the cardio, the ferocity, I don't see why she can't either win a decision by winning the 2nd and 3rd rounds or just completely demolish McMann in the 3rd round like we've seen happen multiple times, because she strains herself trying to physically enforce herself on these younger, weaker, smaller fighters. And if it takes too much out of her, she just gasses out. She's got nothing left to give late in the fight. I think this is a golden opportunity for Aspen Ladd to get back on track, Keith, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I absolutely hate this matchup. And the reason why I hate this matchup is I don't trust either one of these fighters at this point of their careers. McMann, one, obviously the big thing jumps out is her age. On the feet, she's a boxer on the feet. I'd say she's a serviceable boxer at best. She kind of fights behind a high guard defense, doesn't throw kicks at all, but does have, you look at her arm, she does have some natural pop in her. She's an elite wrestler, but I stress this over and over again. Like, people talk about her silver medal in the Olympics. It's completely irrelevant at this point now. That was 18 years ago when she won the silver in the Olympics. She can shoot from the outside and get some good takedowns by driving in, but she also can get in the inside, get in clinch, double tie up, double underhooks, shoot inside trips. She's got explosive entries. If she gets a limb, she's so strong, and she kind of just knows those perfect angles to kind of fight on the, cut an angle and just kind of get you down. Smothering top control, very hard ground and pound. She showed off like really good ground and pound against Lena Landsberg and Carol Hossa. But you mentioned it. She fades late and really worried about she does not match up good against submission fighters. Marion Renault, Ketlin Vieira, Juliana Pena, they all were able to kind of come from behind submission wins on her. Aspen Ladd, you talk about not having confidence in her. She has not looked the same since she tore her ACL. And she was out for a long time. Sure, you could argue it's a step up in competition. I mean, Norma Dumont, Raquel Pennington, those are good, tough fighters. They're also the fighters that you can't just out grit. They're both kind of gritty themselves, and grit is part of Ladd's game. So it could have been a stylistic matchup, but I just haven't seen any improvement. I mean, she was always kind of a limited athlete. She's she's never really, her athleticism never really jumped out at you as someone who was a hyped up prospect. But I feel like her athleticism has decreased. Now she's 27. She should be in her prime years, and I'm just not seeing it. I mean, she's a limited striker. She's kind of flat-footed. She's not, like I mentioned, she's not a good athlete. She's a little slow. She lacks head movement. She does have raw power, and to her credit, she does keep everything tight inside her striking. And she doesn't because of that. There's not too many. She doesn't open up too much, so there's not a lot to counter. She can close the distance. She can kind of grind in the clinch. She has good clinch takedowns. Very good top game though. Good top pressure, and some of the best ground and pound in the women's division. I mean, I've said on my show she has this insane girl going in. She's the person, if she was your girlfriend, you'd be a little scared of her. You wouldn't you're not going to cheat on Aspen Ladd because she's going to go you know what I mean?
Have you seen She-Hulk? Maybe the scene where she dates the guy and picks him up off the couch?
Yeah, that could be Aspen Ladd. Just kind of I said to be home at 9. You're rolling in at 9:15, and she's just clubbing you. So she has a little bit of a I'm pretty sure Aspen Ladd's middle name is Tiffany or Jessica or Paige or something like that. But as far as the prediction, McMann's window to be a title challenger, and it's basically now or never. She pretty much has to go undefeated the rest of her career. She's going to win 2-3, win the title. As soon as she loses, she's going to fall so far out. Ladd, her time. I mean, this is a really winnable fight. If McMann was 10 years younger, I would pick her with confidence. I just don't trust her fight IQ. I don't trust her gas tank. Mm-hmm. But especially I don't trust her to control Ladd and not let Ladd come back on it you were mentioning.
Exactly.
But strictly from an X and an O's perspective, I really think this is a decent stylistic matchup for McMann. She's just as strong. She's the better technical wrestler. And then you mentioned you talk about Ladd's weight cut. Can we bet if she'll even make weight at all? Now, if she drains herself, I hate doing this, because I have no confidence. I've literally switched, but I almost switched, but I already made my prediction on my show. So I don't want to hedge my bets and go both ways,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you know what? This is a betting show, so I can be no punk bitch. I'll go with the upset. give me McMann to take Ladd down 3 times and win a decision.
There you go. All right. Hey, we got a little. We're on opposite sides of the fence here on this one. We do see a lot. Again, we see a lot of the same things here, Keith. I think Aspen Ladd is going to be, it's the youth, it's the size, it's the power, it's the ferocity. I think she's going to end up working her way back into this fight after McMann probably starts off pretty strong. I don't mind it, though. It's lined pick 'em for a reason. This is a very closely lined fight. There's a lot of questions on both sides of the fence. And the one thing, Aspen Ladd, guys, that weird pigskin game that we talked about earlier on in the evening, that apparently there's a game going on right now, football something or other. When guys tear their ACLs, they never come back quick. Aspen Ladd tore her ACL in 2020. And I'll agree with you, Keith. She did not look the same at all. But now it's been 2 years since. Sure. And she's had a bit of a layoff. This is when athletes in general, and this is me just eyeballing it, obviously I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but this is where athletes in general would tend to kind of recover from that type of a situation. So I would think that we might be able to see a better version of Aspen Ladd here than if she was being hampered by that ACL. I would think this is where it would start to heal. She would start to improve again, and she's so young. I think she's got opportunity to still improve, to still grow. I do want to see her on the scale. That's a big question for me. Even if I do want to get behind Aspen Ladd here in this spot, got to see her on the scale. Make sure she makes weight. Hey, but if she pulls a Macy Chase on and we bump this thing up 10 pounds right before fight day, it's Aspen Ladd, baby.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm totally with you.
If she comes in with an 8-pound weight advantage, it's Aspen Ladd all day.
Especially because McMahon's in one of the she's just short of bantamweight. She's not tall.
Yeah.
She's just ripped.
Exactly. She's one of those muscle monsters. So
I'm pretty sure she has bigger arms than I do.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Like Sara McMann could beat me in an arm wrestling match.
I always talk about Holly Holm, that I'm like, I wish I could have half the body Holly does by the time I turn 40. I'd better get running and lifting right now. All right, everybody. Next fight up, we've got Trevin Giles taking on Louise Cosce. And oh my God, guys, I went back and I did a recap and I looked back over my action over the course of the year, trying to identify some of my weaknesses. Why am I having such a bad year betting? It all went off the rails when I trusted Trevin Giles. This man is my favorite fade on the roster. I've bet against him every opportunity that I've had. And then I finally decide to trust him. And it was like the first event of the year. And I went heavy on it. And he got starched, got absolutely starched right out the gate. And I was like, oh my God. So no, never again. That was Pandora's box. That's the reason I'm losing, is because Trevin Giles. No, I'm kidding. So seriously though, this guy has good technical boxing. He's athletic. He's fast. He's sticking around at 170, which I think makes some sense. He's got wrestling in his back pocket. I worry about the decision-making. I worry about the cardio. We've seen him also fall apart late in fights multiple times. When he's been way ahead before he did so, he fell apart. And now we've seen him clipped and hurt and knocked out, like right when he goes full-time, quits his day job, goes all in on the fighting. Did not return well, but he's taken on Cosce. Now, Cosce, ever since his Contender Series fight, he has seemed a little off. You know, we all bought into the Cosce brothers. They came off the Contender Series super hyped up. Everybody thought a lot of them. Farm strength, training out of Team Alpha Male with Uriah Faber. I liked a lot about these guys, and I actually piled in on them in their UFC debuts as well, and that hasn't turned out so well. I'm starting to think that maybe they are not as good as I initially thought they were. I agree with Trevin Giles being lined the favorite. He's a minus 200 favorite right now in this spot. I will never trust Trevin Giles at chalk. It ain't happening. It's not going down. But we've seen Cosce also blow his wad and gas out. Okay, so maybe Trevin Giles is not going to have a gas tank disadvantage in this fight. Trevin Giles has a reach advantage. Trevin Giles is a slicker boxer. Okay, maybe Cosce's got the power edge. Maybe. Is he a better wrestler? I don't even know if he's that. So, like, I kind of think Trevin Giles is better everywhere in this fight. At the same time, I'm not betting him. Keith, how do you see this fight playing out?
All right, so you broke news to me. So I wasn't really prepared for this fight. I'll tell you why. You said you're not a doctor. So I work for Sherdog per diem. My actual job, I'm a detective. And so I have this one rule: I'll never go against police officers. So even if I think they're going to lose, I always predict the police officer. So I had in my notes like, okay, you're taking Trevin Giles. That's your whole breakdown. I didn't realize he just quit being a police officer. So now I actually don't have to pick him anymore. But
there you go. He hung it up.
But because of that, I have no notes, because last time I did my show, I said, hey, we'll save some time on this fight. Everyone knows I'm going to take the police officer. So I'll take the police officer by decision. So next fight, I might fade him. But this one, I didn't know. So thanks for breaking the news for me.
Hey, you got it, man. That's what's up. No, so we really can save some time on this one, because I'm not going near it with a 10-foot pole. Cosce's got to show me that he belongs in the UFC. We need to see some improvements from last time. Giles, he's, damn near on the chopping block at this point. One of these guys that has so much skill and potential, but doesn't seem to be able to capitalize on it. And again, like I said, I am not laying minus 200 on Trevin Giles in this spot. We'll see how he looks. He probably should win, but you just can't trust the guy.
No.
So that one, we will definitely cut a little time down here on the show. Folks, we are going to take a real quick break. Want to hear a word from our sponsors, pay some bills here at Pub Sports Radio, and then we'll be right back to break down the rest of UFC Vegas 60. What is going on, fight fans? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast right here at Pub Sports Radio. I am joined by Sherdog's Keith, and we are breaking down UFC Vegas 60. Do us a favor, smash that like button, smash the crap out of it, and then go follow my guy Keith. We're going to talk about some fights here and try to make you all some money. Next fight up, Damon Jackson taking on Pat Sabatini. And similar to your last fight there, Keith, I'm not allowed to make a selection on this fight because from now on, I'm not allowed to pick against Damon Jackson because he straight called my ass out on Twitter.
Nice.
And the shame. I have always been a Damon Jackson fan, and more often than not, I have built a case for him, especially as an underdog. But damn, man, I felt the time had come. I bought in on Camuela Kirk. And to find the notification, that's the downside of betting, is that these fighters have a Twitter presence, and when they see your shit, they will comment on it. And so Damon Jackson, I got a target on my back now if I ever bet against him, unfortunately. I love the guy. Fortis MMA, he's a hard worker, definitely a finisher, which we all love to see. All of his losses are by finish, 1-inch reach advantage here. But damn, he did not look great in his last fight, Keith. The wrestling heavy approach really seemed to kind of wear him down, tire him out. And he's taking on Pat Sabatini. He's one of these Philly Gracie boys. They flow so effortlessly. The wrestling and the jiu-jitsu, the muscles. Like, these Philly Gracie guys are something else. He's a little tank. Sharp boxing, heavy hands, and I just love the constant pressure with that ground game. Man, I got to pick Pat Sabatini here in this spot. I think he's a rightful favorite to go ahead and get the job done. I mean, maybe Damon Jackson can starch him, but we've seen him accept bottom position and play off his back. We've seen him tire out when he's forced to wrestle for, 7 minutes and doesn't get the finish. Like, I like Pat Sabatini here.
Yeah. So to all the listeners, it's cool. Like, I find it funny if a fighter, you pick against them and they call you out. Like, don't do it the other way, though. If they lose, like, don't call them out. Just don't be that guy. I'm not saying that you do that, but just don't be. I know you.
I hate when people do that.
Yeah, like this is their livelihood. This is fun for us. This is how these guys.
Exactly.
I mean, I might not be fun for some people, but this might some of you guys. I don't know how hardcore gamblers you guys got. Maybe this is your job, but. So Jackson is my kind of guy, and the reason why I say this is like I love these overachievers, the guys who kind of like they're not the greatest athlete, but they like just drain every ounce of athleticism they have, all this gut and grit, and like beat guys that they probably shouldn't. He's a long and lengthy fighter who can. He keeps his distance by throwing long range shots. He's got high volume. He throws hard kicks. He'll also throw some naked leg kicks, which leave him open to counters. And the fact that he keeps his chin in the air, which is kind of seems like the theme for my notes for guys on this card. But he's got a Division I wrestling background, good timing on his reactionary double, kind of forces opponents to kind of chase him when they close the distance. That's when he drops down. He took down Charles Rosa 6 times. He has been taken down though, like Mirsad Bektic took him down 7 times himself. And some of the reason that happens is he's a guy who's. He's like what we just saw in Nate Diaz. He won't defend. He'll jump a guillotine. And he's got a really good guillotine now. And he's really an underrated grappler. He's got some pretty slick submissions, some slick back takes. He kind of likes like a very backpack game where he likes to kind of hang out there. And he's got good cardio. I mean, that's how he wins a lot of his fights. You said he kind of slowed down a little bit. I think that was a outlier. I think based on we've seen him go really hard in other fights. So Sabatini, you mentioned it, Renzo Gracie Philly. That's a team that I know you've been hard riding, like fight ready and everything, and which I like a lot too. But like Renzo Gracie, that's my other team, man. Like I've been backing those guys before it was like popular too. It's
hard to argue that right now.
Yeah, man. They have this undefeated streak going, so Sabatini has a lot of pressure to try to keep this undefeated UFC streak going. He's a good athlete. I'd say a plus athlete. Very karate style on his feet. He's got this wide base to him. Nothing special with the hands, just kind of serviceable striking with the hands. But I do like that he works the body. He's got a little bit of pop in his hands. Because of that karate style, he'll throw out some spinning attacks. But he's a really good wrestler. Good entries, smothering top control, hard ground and pound. He has a submission threat. You look like a slick heel hook he hit on Jamal Emmers. I hate to do this, but I'm going to go against Damon Jackson. While I think he's a good grappler, and because of that, I don't think Sabatini submits him. I just think this fight is going to look a lot like the Bektia fight, where Sabatini's getting takedowns and working on top, except I don't expect the big gas fallout fade late like back this year. I expect Sabatini to do it the whole thing. So give me Daniel Gracie, Renzo Gracie Philly team to win again. I'll take Sabatini by decision.
All right, same boat here. And I always got to shout out my guy, Real Deal Prime. You can count on him in the chat to come on in. Wrestling rules. That's what he says.
Dude.
Right.
So we talk about sports. Like, obviously MMA is my number one sport, and other people have other ones. People talk about hockey, and NCAA wrestling is my number two. I will talk NCAA wrestling with anybody. I love it.
See, and I don't know much about it. I'll be honest.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
You know what? I flared out of wrestling after 7th grade. It just got to be a little bit too much for me. Enjoyed it when I was younger, but the grind, I wasn't built for the grind, Keith. So I know it's the best base for MMA. I respect the hell out of these guys that do it, especially that do it this deep into their lives. It's impressive as hell. And it absolutely is a thing that matters when it comes to the UFC fighting, and these guys in their MMA journeys. Wrestlers have a distinct advantage more often than not, I feel like. All right, everybody. We are moving the show right along here. Next fight up, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez taking on Marc-André Barriault. And it's funny, Keith, because I know that Anthony Hernandez is not the same Fluffy, but I always think of it's not Gabriel Iglesias, the comedian that goes by Fluffy.
I don't know. You got me on that one. I have
no idea. No. Okay. It is Gabriel Iglesias. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't mixing him up with the singer. Check out Gabriel Iglesias. He is hilarious. He's absolutely hilarious, but he goes by Fluffy. He's a big old fat guy, and that's his thing, is when you get to a certain level of, or he used to be, actually, he's lost a ton of weight, but he used to say that when you got to a certain level of fat, you started calling yourself Fluffy. Like, that was level 5 of when you got big. You're a Fluffy guy now. So
I'm in like the pre-Fluffy, like I'm right there on the brink.
Exactly. You and me both, man.
Yeah.
No, I always think of Gabriel Iglesias anytime I see an Anthony Hernandez name come up on a fight here. And my favorite bit of his is he's talking about a stripper. Like, he goes out and his buddies take him to a strip joint or whatever. And he's like, you got to call them
a good
dancers.
conversation.
You have to call them dancers. She's like, no, I'm not a stripper. I am an entertainer. And that's like, I don't know why, but it's my favorite line. And that's what you guys don't know this behind the camera. This is some like next level shit insight to my life. Whenever people are like showing like their gambling records and stuff like that, to myself here at home, none of you have ever heard this. I go, I am not a gambler. I am an entertainer. I don't know.
There you go.
So I'm sorry.
It's always a good story when you start with, well, I was at a strip club.
Exactly. The story is headed the right direction from that point. But all right, back to the actual fight breakdown. Marc-André Barriault, man, this is a guy that I feel like if you've seen Marc-André fight one time, you've seen him fight a million times. Like, his style just doesn't change. He's a big hunk of metal, and he walks forward and he tries to cardio pace you. He's got decent boxing. He's shown off a couple finishes against questionable competition lately. So he's not really a finisher. He's more of a decision guy, but he wears you out. He will just wear you down over the course of the fight and then work his way to a decision. Honestly, Keith, I think he's a gatekeeper. I think he's a guy that we've seen his peak. He's not going to get much beyond this point, and he's a hurdle for some of these guys that are more talented. Fluffy is a guy, on the other hand, that uses that gas tank like a weapon. He comes forward, brings the fight to you, forces the pace. He's got good, sharp striking. He hits hard, and that submission game is on point. Your boy called the Rodolfo Vieira upset that he pulled off. That was a fun night. And honestly, I'm almost ready to go to war with Fluffy here in this fight. I've lost money trying to bet against Marc-André Barriault multiple times before, but one thing I saw is that Marc-André, he kind of leaves his head and his neck out there when he gets in these wrestling scrambles. You go back to the Dolce Lungiambula fight, and Dolce got the front headlock position on him. Fluffy's arm in guillotine is nasty, and I feel like there's an opportunity with that move specifically that he can pull off this upset. Crystal ball time, arm in guillotine, Fluffy submission. I think it's on the table here. But
nice.
Marc-André could also just, do the same thing he always does, not break, wear the guy down, win a split decision. I'm kind of leaning towards Fluffy. I don't think I'm betting this fight.
Would you say what was the line again? You said just so straight.
So Fluffy is a minus 170 favorite, plus 150 on Marc-André. So Andre is the underdog here.
Wow. I expect this fight to be like, should be a pick'em fight to me. Like it should be really,
I agree.
really close. Again, like I'm not the betting guy, but so I know sometimes the lines are set, not necessarily how they think the fight's going to go, but how they think bettors would go to maximize the money they make. Hernandez, he's not a great athlete, but I love what he does. You mentioned it, his cardio. He just makes up with just being aggressive. He marched down his opponents. He, for a guy who's a smaller middleweight, he can crack a little bit. He's an okay wrestler. I think he's a grossly underrated grappler. I mean, yeah, he gets the credit for submitting Rodolfo Vieira because Vieira was tired. And yes, that is the biggest factor. You still have to have the skills to put a submission like that in. I don't care how tired Vieira is. And not to forget, he almost caught Vieira a couple times in that fight. It wasn't just he caught him one time. And, he has that whole front headlock series, the guillotines, the Darce chokes, the anacondas, all those, attacking the throats and scrambles. He's a weak defensive wrestler, but he does really well to work back to his feet. He showed great submission defense when he was taken down against a guy like Rodolfo Vieira. Didn't get subbed. And you mentioned the best thing about it is just cardio's a weapon. He's going to get stronger as the fight goes on. Barriault is very similar. He's a high volume striker who just marches down his opponents. He's a bit of a headhunter though. He constantly throws the same right hand over and over again, which makes him predictable. He has good KO power when he lands, though. He's got hard calf kicks. He doesn't like being pressured, though. Like, go back to the Jung Young Park fight. He beat him simply by pressure and kind of forcing Barriault out of his game, where Barriault was kind of had to fight off the back foot. He has some defensive holes. He does a lot of pillaring, which I'm not a big fan of in MMA. If people don't understand what I'm talking about, pillaring is where you kind of hide behind your arms. You actually kind of almost attack with your arms. You see it a lot in boxing because of the big gloves. That's something that Barriault does a little bit too much. Tito Ortiz against Chuck Liddell, the first one, that's kind of like an example of pillaring before he got knocked out. He will shoot for a takedown, but he isn't a wrestler. But he showed good takedown defense against Krzysztof Jotko, and he's got good cardio. So I think this is a war. I wouldn't be surprised if this is our fight tonight. I think both guys will be marching forward, throwing down. Both guys have underrated wrestling, but I'm gonna go with Hernandez though. He's a little bit younger. He's taking a little bit less damage. Plus, he just seems like the more of the overachiever. I put him in that category. I put in a Gerald Mershad, where what he does doesn't jump on your pace. Oh wow, look at this. Look at this. When you're talking about great fighters, you don't talk about Anthony Hernandez, but all of a sudden there he is getting the win. So give me Hernandez by decision.
Okay. All right. So we're agreeing here on the side. We're also agreeing that from a betting perspective, this line should probably be a bit tighter. I can see this fight being close, being hairy. And if he doesn't get the finish, I do expect it to be damn near a split decision type of situation. But I do think Fluffy's going to have some opportunities to finish this fight. You can just always count on Marc-André to never go away. Yeah. The one time he got starched was almost fluky, in my opinion. There's that just doesn't happen to Marc-André. So, I can see this fight being very, very competitive. And as much as I'll be picking Fluffy, like I said, probably, pardon me, probably no bet from me. What the hell was that? Okay, moving the show right along, everybody. We got big boys coming up next. I'm excited to talk about our guy, Tanner Boser, my favorite mullet in the UFC. It's been a while since we've seen our guy taking on Rodrigo Nascimento. Tanner Boser's had a bunch of matchups that have just kind of fallen through, and we have not seen him for some time because of that here. Last time he fought all the way back in 2021, kind of turned into a finisher, low-key. I mean, this is another heavyweight grinder that has turned into a finisher because he's so pissed off that the judges kept sending the fights the other direction. He's like, all right, fine then. It's not going to make it there. And he started knocking people out. Now, he's a bit smaller at heavyweight, a lot faster than some guys, though, because of that. Nascimento, he's 8-1, and I'm really not sure what to make of this guy yet. He's training out of ATT, so he comes from a good gym, but he's that forward stalking, heavy on his feet, Muay Thai stylist on the feet. He has no striking defense, Keith. None whatsoever. I mean, I think he literally has a 31% striking defense if you look at the UFC stats page. This guy is there to be hit, but he walks forward, takes whatever punishment he can to lock you up and trip you and drag you to the ground. On the mat, this guy is slick for a big guy. His back takes are fast. He's got underrated jiu-jitsu, even though he's got power on the feet. Like his first 2 wins in the UFC were by sub. This fight has stay away written all over it for me, because I think Tanner Boser should be miles ahead on the feet. The leg kicks, the chopping attacks that he just plays the outside, picks and pokes, and he'll have that right hand piston straight down the line. He'll be able to touch Rodrigo Nascimento. It's going to come down to will Rodrigo gas and get tired, because if he slows down, Tanner will execute him. However, Tanner's weakness has been on the ground. He's got a 70% takedown defense rating, but he's proven that he's inept as far as getting back to his feet. So if Rodrigo gets on top of him, I don't expect Boser to get back up, quite frankly. So this is a spot where heavyweight's going to be heavyweights. I don't think I'm betting this fight. I will pick Tanner Boser for the win. I don't mind if you want to play violence on this one, go inside the distance, the Boser KO. Yep, there's Mushroom saying Boser KO. I don't mind that whatsoever, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Rodrigo Nascimento made some improvements, since it's been a while since we've seen him too, and he's training at a good gym.
Yeah, honestly, we're in total agreement. Just everything about this fight. Like I said, I'm not a big gambler, so I'm staying away from the bet anyways. But yeah, I have no confidence in either pick. I don't know how you do like your note taking and your film, but I kind of give you what I do. I have like a Word document. I have all the people's names. I can't keep it there all the time. And then every week I try to watch the fights, but I usually like rank the fights in order how I want to break them down, and do more additional tape study. And then just sometimes you run out of time. This one I ran out of time. So this was one. This was out of the list. This was my dead last one. Didn't get to it, so I didn't do additional tape study. So don't follow anything I'm saying about this. I'm saying I'm talking about my ass a little bit. Boser, he's a better athlete than you think, especially when you have this missing a tooth and they got the mullet going. You don't think a prime athlete, but he's a little quicker than you think. He moves pretty well. Uses a lot of feints, stiff jab. You mentioned the chopping. I like how you describe it, chopping leg kicks. But he lacks power for heavyweight. He's a bit of like a point fighter. He's it's a not a strong thing. Not a strong offensive wrestler. I think actually a weaker defensive wrestler. And we've seen in the past kind of struggle back to his feet. And no lack of urgency. We saw 2 fights that were close where he lost because he didn't pick up the pace. The Ilir Latifi one and then the Andre Arlovski one. Now I'm gonna give him a pass for the Andre Arlovski, because Arlovski has this voodoo thing going where he can fight at an insanely slow pace. And no matter who's facing him, even Jake Collier, who's known for going right at you, everyone gets in this trance against Andre Arlovski. They don't do anything. I think that kind of happened to Mr. Boser. Now that's
it's in his contract, Keith. Yeah, Andre does not lose split decisions. It's in the contract.
He's like the opposite of Courtney Casey,
inverse Angela Hill.
Rodrigo Nascimento. I think your breakdown was really good. He's a southpaw that he's a solid athlete. I think he's a brawler on the feet. You mentioned, he just walks forward and throws bombs. He drops his hands. He keeps his chin really high. His left hook is his best strike. He'll throw a high kick, but everything he does, obviously he wants to connect. He wants to knock you out, but it's really just to close the distance and get inside, get those inside trips. He will shoot for entries if he was in that range. Good ground and pound. He's got slick submission, 6 submissions in his career. This is a tough fight to pick. It's striker versus grappling. Obviously, both have to worry about the big shots from Nascimento. He has to play away from the cage. He can't back straight up. He's got to play when I used to play with my kids. We used to play the floor is lava and jump around on pillows. Boser's got to do that with the cage, or pretend it's like an electric fence. Do not back up to the cage to give Nascimento that chance to kind of pin you and shoot. I have a really hard time picking this one. I'm with you. I'm going to take Boser just because he's a better athlete. He's faced that tougher competition, and I could see him just jabbing and moving and having a really kind of boring fight. But yeah, I don't know. Give me Boser with zero confidence.
Okay. I'm right there with you. I will also lean towards a Boser side of things, but I'm a little worried about his opponent, taking improvements, coming out here being a little bit more refined than we've seen him in the past. And yeah, if he gets Boser down, I don't see why he can't ride out a win, because we've seen that work on Boser before. So don't just be careful in your parlays, guys. Like, everyone's going to parlay the shit out of Boser because they think this is such an easy matchup for him. And just be careful. Bankroll management is important. Don't overextend on any one particular bet. And this might be the one here where it's like, yeah, he might shit in your apple pie. Like, if you've got a nice parlay going, Boser could be the one where it looks, but instead he's going to blow the whole thing for you. So be careful out there, everybody. All right. Next fight up, we're talking Alen Amedovski taking on Joe Pyfer. Keith, be Joe Pyfer. Be Joe Pyfer. This guy coming from the Contender Series. He is the new hotness. Dana is all in love with Joe Pyfer. So this is a massive hype spot. And guys, this it's the Dana White Contender Series fade angle yet again. Alen Amedovski, the UFC experienced fighter, plus 375 is the underdog. Joe Pyfer's a minus 450 favorite. And I'm ashamed, folks, because this is my angle. The Contender Series fade is my angle. I should be betting it. It's the second time this week that it's arrived, and I'm just, no, I want nothing to do with it. I would love to capitalize on the hype of Joe Pyfer and take a stab at fading this guy just in his first fight, because I think he's good, but just in that first fight. But they gave him Alen freaking Amedovski. Keith, what are you supposed to do when they give you Alen Amedovski? 0-3 in the UFC. First fight was a bum fight against Jotko. The only reason he didn't get finished is because Jotko finishes nobody, finished in his last two fights in a combined under 2 minutes. Like, this guy does not belong here. They're propping Pyfer up. Round one Pyfer, unless he does something stupid. And Alen Amedovski's a banger. He's got power. That's the one thing he has. If he comes out and decides to trade and throw down, Pyfer might get clipped in that first round. So round one, Amedovski is live. Nothing else is.
Yeah, totally with you, man. Like, you talk about having this rule to don't bet Dana White Contender Series. I have a rule like don't bet Alen Amedovski. So it's funny when you talk about the three guys he fought. He actually had his best, and it wasn't a good showing, but he had his best showing actually against his toughest competition of the three guys he fought. Like, the only when you write down if you just watch his UFC film, the only offense you can find is in that one fight against Krzysztof Jotko. He wants to brawl. He wants to get in. He wants to wild haymakers, high output. But I mean, the guy's fought he's fought once in 3 years. He's looked terrible. He got knocked out by John Phillips in like a minute. He got subbed by Joseph Holmes in his last fight in like a minute. Those are the two worst, middleweights on the roster. I mean, Phillips is not even on the roster anymore, but he's a weak defensive wrestler. He struggles on bottom. Pyfer, stiff jab, good power, really whips his shots. He's got 6 KOs. I mean, he had that beautiful walk-off one punch in his last fight. His left hook, it was a short left hook being his best strike. He doesn't make the mistake of throwing a little too much power shots that the right guy can kind of pressure him and kind of tire him out doing that. But when he's zoned, he's got some good hard kicks, and he's a very good wrestler. Like, I really like him. He's very physically strong, some slick back takes. He rides a little too high for my liking, a little bit like not an angle I was not a comparison I was expecting to do, but a little Angela Lee in him, where he's got these slick back takes but can lose position by riding too high. But he does have 2 submissions, and he almost had the head and arm triangle choke on the Contender Series. Pyfer's gonna have a lot of pressure. One, that's being his first fight in the UFC, but also that we already talked about that Daniel Gracie Philly team undefeated streak going. But that's about it. Stylistically, this is a perfect match for him. I think he could, like, you're saying that Amedovski's only shot is first round. I think that's going to cause Amedovski to get knocked out because he's going to come out wailing and throwing big shots. And Pyfer's just going to catch him with a perfect left hook. Give me Pyfer a first round knockout.
Yeah, I think that fight's going to go one of two ways, because of the way Alen Amedovski fights. He's going to either barrel through this guy, clip him with a big shot and put him down, pull off the giant upset, or he's going to die in about 60 seconds. So yeah, I'm saying be Joe Pyfer. We're going to go ahead and pick him to win. But just be forewarned, everybody, he is fighting a literal human landmine in there on Saturday. So if he comes in, not respectful of his opponent, he could lose this fight. It's entirely possible. I do expect him to win. That price tag is insane. I would be more looking towards the under personally. All right. We are getting down to the nitty-gritty, folks. Everybody do me a favor, smash that like button. We've got 3 more fights to talk about, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap this bad boy up for you. This one, maybe fight of the night. Like, sleeper for fight of the night here. Andre Touchy-Feely taking on Bill Aljo. Keith, this is such an awesome fight. I don't think people are going to understand just how great this fight has potential to be. Andre Feely has hit a really rough rut lately. He's having a hard time. Poor guy, his one win recently where he was just beating the brakes off his man, accidental eye poke, no contest. So because that fight got taken away from him, he's now on this just egregious skid of 1 win in his last 5 fights. I mean, don't get it twisted. He absolutely was going to win that fight. But it does not look good on his record. And in his last fight, I went hard on him. I came in thinking, you know what? He's going to show everybody wrong. He's going to be hungry after that last fight. He's going to box this guy up, outpace him, stay on the outside, and he's going to win this fight easy, remind everybody who Andre Feely is. Well, he did come in with that chip on his shoulder. He did come in a little over-aggressive, I guess, and got starched in round 1. So that didn't look good in hindsight. But now he's taking on Bill Aljo, Senior Perfecto. And I love Bill Aljo. I love me some Bill. I'm sad we didn't get the Battle of the Bills a couple weeks ago like we were supposed to. That would have been fun. But this is another gas tank as a weapon type of guy. He likes to play the outside. He pushes that pace. He mixes in the grappling. And he's just constantly in your face. Always, always, always trying to force to make you work. And the big thing I noticed looking back through Andre Feely's record here, Keith, is that he's always in close fights. Like, he's got so many split decisions on his record. You know, Charles Jourdain, Miles Jury was close, even though it wasn't a split. The Michael Johnson fight was a split. Dennis Bermudez was a split. Like, he hits that striking flow state and doesn't really check the boxes of like win MMA. So he's just out there fighting. And because of that, he ends up in really close fights every time. I see a lot of love coming in on Bill Aljo, and I'm a Bill Aljo guy. I love me some Bill. But I kind of lean to Andre Feely in this fight. I kind of feel like the lifelong martial artist, the guy that's buried and forgotten right now, it really is deserving to be the favorite. The only problem I have is he fights so closely every damn time. Even though he is just a short minus 120 favorite right now, I still don't know that I want to lay chalk on him because this fight's going to be competitive. It's going to be close. It's going to be tight. But I think I lean ever so slightly with Touchy-Feely.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. This is one of the. I totally agree with everything you said. You said that fight of the night. Yeah, this could be a real banger. Basically on Aljo style too. Like, he presses the action, makes everyone kind of. Like, you're not going to have a slow outside kickboxing matchup with Aljo when you're fighting him. So I think that's a good reason. Andre Feely, he's one of these guys. He can really fight at both stances. You know, one of the true guys who can do that. He's a counter striker. He uses feints really well to draw attacks. He's got some quick hands, some pop in his hands. He's one of the guys who actually can strike while backing up. He likes his like fade back counters. What I mean by that, like a perfect example of the fade back counter is the Jose Aldo, Conor McGregor, where he fades out of the way and you counter with another shot. Good high kicks. He has what I call the Robert Whitaker high kick, is where you dip to one side, like you're kind of throwing a shot, and you throw the high kick as you're dipping, as you're kind of bobbing, weaving. He's got decent pop, underrated wrestler. He needs to improve his top game, though. He isn't much of a submission threat, and he struggles if you put him on his back. I mean, Bryce Mitchell, I mean, not a good example, but Bryce Mitchell took him down and held him. And you got to be worried about his chin. I mean, he was just knocked out quickly by Joe Anderson Brito. Now, Aljo is a very long, lengthy striker. He's a controlled pressure counter striker. He fights a lot like Stephen Thompson, where he kind of keeps his hands low and throw these counters from weird angles. You mentioned he attacks with volume, good combinations. I love that he throws kicks in his combos, where a lot of guys only will do like punchy combination. He throws some really hard kicks. I love his he closes the distance with like something spectacular, high flying stuff, which obviously can hurt his opponent. I could also see Feely just catching him and they put him on my back for that. Strong in the plum clinch because he has that such size advantage. It's easy for him to batter the body with knees and in elbows. I like that he looks for like body locks inside, but he's got some he's got some things. He's got like a very funk style wrestling to him. Like he'll throw it like a head and arm triangle, head and arm throw, excuse me, which I hate. But he has a Brazilian blast belt. He tosses up a lot of submissions off the bottom. He kind of chains them together, which I like. He isn't a submission threat, but he does use the space to get back to his feet. Weak takedown defense. I mean, he's been taken down 23 times in 6 UFC fights, which I don't like. But it's a lot because of that funk style. Instead of sprawling, he's looking for Kimuras. He's looking for guillotines. But he showed in his last fight he gets a good grappling. Of course, Burns gassed out, but he showed good submission defense. So to me, this really, and I understand why you're taking Fili. To me, this really comes down to what you think Fili has left. If Fili is the guy that beat Dennis Bermudez, if that guy is still out there, the guy that like got takedowns against a really good wrestler against Dennis Bermudez, I could see Algeo just spending so much time getting taken down to get taken down.
Yes.
I'm just not sure that guy exists anymore. I really hope he does. I really hope it's still there. It's why I'm on the fence so much. I think no matter which way I pick this fight, it's gonna be one of those ones right away I pick. I go, why didn't I see that? You know, so it's gonna look really bad if Algeo turns into a takedown dummy. But on the feet, he will. Like the one thing on the feet is I know he'll have the volume. Like he'll have the volume of the two fighters. He should have the long range strikes. I think that's gonna be too much. Give me Algeo just to overwhelm Fili, just outpacing him with volume. Give me Algeo by a really close split decision.
I respect it. I absolutely do, Keith. And that's where there's two things this year that I've honed in on that I've been doing very wrong when it comes to my my gambling, my betting. And that's betting old fighters that I don't quite think are washed yet that turn out to be, and then betting these closely lined pick'em -110 type of fights. I seem to be wrong on those more often than I should be. And now, you know, game theory says that if you flip a coin 100 times, you're going to end up with 50-50, right? So like those should work themselves out and come back around. But right now they are not. So I'm trying to avoid these pick'em fights unless I'm like really invested that I've got a good read. So I think that Fili is still in there. I know, and I was going to say, I'm glad you brought up the grappling because I was going to kind of circle back around to that. If this guy wrestles, he's got a clear path to victory. Like Absolutely. You go back and you watch the Ricardo Ramos fight with Bill Algeo, and that was just such a clean win for him because he mixed in the wrestling. It's not that he dominated him necessarily from bell to bell, but it made it very clear because he was chunking away a minute or two at a time with these takedowns. And if Fili goes back to that, he's got it. It's in the skill set. It's in his back pocket. And we've seen these fighters before when they get on a losing skid, when they take a couple of bad losses, they get that just win mentality. And I think that's why we could see the wrestling come back for Fili here. It's a clear path to victory. It's something he could do, but I'm not going to bank on him doing it with my money. I'm going to pick Fili for the win. I don't mind the split decision prop bet for anybody looking that way because this fight should be close. But yeah, I'll pick Fili for the win. But guys, don't get me wrong. I'm not betting this fight because I definitely am. I'm not going to step right in the hole that is not one but two of the things I've been doing wrong this entire year, and that's betting a fighter that could be washed and betting a pick'em price tag.
my kryptonite is going with wrestle boxers. People always make fun of me that he's taking the wrestler. That's why it's very rare for me to go against a guy like Gravely and not take the wrestle boxer.
Yeah. Speaking of Gravely, my guy MMA Locker Room, one of the Pub Sports Radio personalities here, he knows. Yep, Gravely is my favorite guy to try to find an opportunity. But that's not always true, Locker Room. I cashed a ticket on him. Not last fight. You know, I tried to fade him last time out, but the fight before that, I was on him. All right, everybody. Co-main event time. Chidi Njokuani taking on Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez, Mr. Obama himself. If you're one of those people. This is a fun fight. This is a great fight, but we've got another closely lined battle here, man. These guys are both kind of riding mini little hype trains at the moment. Gregory Rodriguez, holy crap, this guy is big for the weight class. He is chiseled out of stone. He is solid muscle, sharp boxing, pinpoint accuracy. Like you go back and you rewatch the tape, man, when he throws his combinations, his hands are on point. Like he is always landing right square where he wants to with his hands, and it's impressive. His opponent, Chidi, really kind of a 2.0 version of himself right now. I mean, this guy was losing over to middle leveling Bellator guys not that long ago. Really kind of doubled down on himself, finds himself in the UFC, and he's knocking, iron fighters that never get finished out in the first round. Like, this resurgence of Chidi is incredible. He's another really big guy for the weight class, and I can't wait to see these guys throw down. Gregory Rodriguez is another guy I've had kind of an up and down relationship with. I feel like I've tried to get at his chin after seeing him wobble a couple times, and he just recovers. Like, it doesn't matter how many times he wobbles. He's never going out, apparently, because he manages to hang in the fight even when he's rocked. I thought I was going to get him with the Iron Turtle, and then he deaded him immediately afterwards. His ground game is super, super slick. The back takes are massively impressive. The timing on the level changes, and he's just so big and physical on top of people, man. If he gets on top of you, you could be in serious trouble. Chidi more is a jiu-jitsu guy these days. Like, he tends to kind of take the bottom side of things. He'll play off his back if you take him down. That was kind of his kryptonite over in Bellator, as people could get him on the mat and slowly kind of work him and grind him out. I don't see why, and okay, I do see why. It's the recency thing with Chidi. Everyone, knows him as this powerful striker that ends people's lives out there. I think they've forgotten that he can be had on the mat. Now, this is where I need a direct phone number to the coach, because if I could call RoboCop's coach and confirm that the game plan is wrestling, it's all in. It's all in on Gregory Rodriguez if the game plan is to take him to the ground. The problem is, if Gregory comes out and brawls with this guy, he could get touched. I talked about that chin. I've tried to fade it myself. I think it's a liability, and someone like Chidi could absolutely put him out. Violence sounds fun to me. And I think Gregory Rodriguez via submission is something that I'm curious with. I'm picking Gregory to win. Worth it in the chat. Feeling the same way with the Gregory Rodriguez sub. This is going to be a fun fight as long as it lasts. But I do kind of lean violence, and I do kind of lean Gregory Rodriguez.
What's the over-under?
So right now it's not out. Unfortunately, we don't have lines on the total. Let me see if I can find something off.
Like a stoppage for either fight. Like I said, I don't know what it is, but like under 1.5 rounds or something like that. To me, that's
1.5. Over is minus 155, so it's favored to go over 1.5. But if you get the alternate line of 2.5, it's like minus 240 to go under 2.5. So they are expecting if this thing gets over that 1.5 round mark, it's not going the distance they're saying.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that under 2.5, and I'd pay what'd you say, negative 240 or something like that. So Chidi, I love how you broke down Chidi, and I love how I got on the hardest card of the year to pick. It's like, it's such good matchmaking. It's like almost every fight is really tough.
This is a tough card, man.
Yeah, you can't get me on the one when Nate Diaz is going against Hasnat Shemaev. Like, I can't get on that one, right?
Yeah, that one was a cakewalk. Yeah. It was kind of anticlimactic to get to the end of that fight card and just be like, guys, it's Tom Sat and Nate. Like, what do you want from me?
So I love this late career surge from Chidi and Njokuani. It's like it's funny how the commentators make it sound like, oh, we've been waiting so long to get in the UFC. Fans been waiting. Like, I didn't know anybody who was like waiting to see Chidi and Njokuani be in the UFC like 3 years ago. But now, I mean, the guy looks really good. He's a long and lengthy fighter. He's got that 80-inch reach. He's a deadly striker. I love that he started adding elbows inside, kind of Tony Ferguson style. He's poised. Something I said earlier, he's one of these guys, he could switch mid-attack. One big thing why he didn't succeed in Bellator was he had low output, and that is not the case in the UFC. He's like the opposite. He's coming out right away, throwing shots, being aggressive. He's got when he's decorated kickboxing, he's got this elite power. He can get in the clinch and just batter you in the clinch. I think he's an underrated grappler. I agree that he's more of a jiu-jitsu specialist. He's a Brazilian black belt. But I used to think it was like, oh, he's one of these Brazilian black belts, but like not all black belts are equal. He went to one of these easy schools, like kind of like a participation trophy. Like, oh, he's been here for a while. Let's give him his black belt, But he out-grappled Mario Souza on the contender series, and he almost caught Dusko Todorovic in his last fight in the Anaconda choke, which showed a lot. He's a weak defensive wrestler, but again, like in his last fight against Todorovic, he showed a way to get back up. And if he's on top, he's just some really, really mean ground and pound against Mario Souza on the contender series. Now, you mentioned, like, you talk about Rodriguez being chiseled. I mean, he looks like a heavyweight, like, even though he's a middleweight. He's well-rounded, extremely aggressive. He fights like he got shot out of a cannon. Like, he just comes out, fight-ending power in both hands, throwing bombs, likes to slide in the pocket, unload big looping power shots. But like you said, he's been tagged way too much, hurt way too much for my liking. You mentioned he's a really, really good grappler. Gets in the clinch, just pummels inside, gets the underhooks, throws, judo trips. He can shoot from the outside, some solid penetration shots. Though he does, and this is something that really worries me, he can duck his head a little bit too much when he shoots, kind of reaching. But if he grabs a leg, he's so physically strong. You're going for a ride. Mean ground and pound, legit submission threat. But one of these guys, he's willing to lose position to get a submission. And because of his style, so which obviously he get himself in compromised positions because of that, but it also because of his style, he throws so hard, he tends to fade late. This is super hard. I've flip-flopped a bunch of times. And again, like, I wish I was in the locker room of Rodriguez, because I'm with you all the way. If I'm his coach, I'm saying, dude, close the distance right away, out-muscle Chidi, and win a grueling affair. But if he stands and he throws those looping wild shots, Chidi can starch him. I could see like a front kick coming down the middle, or just a short. I can see one of these ones where Rodriguez is throwing big shots, and all of a sudden he goes dropping down, and it's just a little short shot that we don't really even see. You know what I mean? Those ones where you see the one guy throwing the big shots, and it's just a little short shot coming inside. And if Rodriguez, like, Chidi needs to survive. If he can survive early, Rodriguez could fade late, and Chidi could starch him that way. I can see that come, him overextended for takedowns, and Chidi just hitting him with knees or a big uppercut. And that's actually what I'm taking. I'm going to say Chidi gets it done. I love this ride that Chidi's on. I'm going to say he gets it done one more time. Give me Chidi by second round TKO with like an uppercut on Rodriguez overextending.
All right. There we go. So I'm on Gregory Rodriguez sub. Keith is calling for the KO from Chidi. I just like violence, Keith. I'll be honest. I think one of these guys is going to get the better of the other one eventually.
Yeah, take the does not go to the distance.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I wouldn't mind people, like, that's a parlay piece. If you want to take fight doesn't go the distance, and look at these guys to just one of them eventually expose the other one. Again, I'm not betting this one, guys. This is another close, tight fight, and it's gonna look, whoever wins this fight, Keith, is gonna look like they should have been a 10-1 favorite, right? Like, it's either gonna be Chidi flipping, and it's going to look like the Yair Rodriguez round 5 up elbow, where he just catches the cleanest shot, and everyone's like, of course, it was always Chidi by knockout. Or Greg's going to take him down and maul him on the floor, and people are like, how did I forget this guy's a black belt? Like that. Those are the only two outcomes in my mind.
If you're going to bet Chidi, you might as well take him inside the distance. Like, sweeten up your pot.
I have a hard time seeing Chidi winning a decision. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think Gregory
I could see Rodriguez. I don't think it's likely. I could see him doing it. It'd be really unlikely for Chidi.
I completely agree. I think Gregory Rodriguez. You know what, guys? And that's, Keith, you brought this up. Great point. Some books out there do have like the finish only or decision only props where it's a push if the other situation occurs. If you want to take like Gregory Rodriguez decision only, I don't know what that number looks like right now because it's not out yet, but I don't think that would be a bad look. I have such a hard time seeing Chidi win this fight by decision, and I don't know that it's going to decision, but if it does, Rodriguez is probably the guy that's going to be able to get it done. I like violence more often than that, but if it finishes, it's decision only. The bet pushes. You don't lose the bet. It pushes. You just get your money back. So that's maybe a sneaky way to look at that fight from a betting perspective. All right, everybody. One final time. You know the drill from this point. Hit the like button for me. Main event time. Let's go. We're talking Cory Sandhagen taking on Song Yadong. And this is a baller free fight card main event. Keith, I am so pumped up for this fight. Song has come such a long way. He is one of these guys who's really grown up in front of us. And Cory Sandhagen has reached the mountain, has fallen short a couple times, and now he's trying to work his way back up there, but he's proven that he's absolutely one of these top-tier contender-type fighters. Not everybody can go 5 rounds competitively with Petr Yan. Not many guys can go to a split decision with my guy, the Snake. So there's a lot to like about Cory Sandhagen. I am very much looking forward to this brawl. You're going to have Cory trying to control the space, control the distance, use the kicks, play on the outside. He's got super high levels of volume. And then Song Yadong is going to be trying to walk him down, catch him, and land those big power shots, those ripping combinations that he has. He throws hammers the entire fight, Keith. Like everything Song throws is to hurt you, to make you feel pain. And he's going to have 25 minutes to work with here. Something I'm excited to see. I'm curious to see if he can keep up that game plan for a full 25 minutes, because obviously every time he's had the opportunity, he can just, he killed Marlon Moraes early. Like, we just don't see this guy go super late in these fights. The few times he has, it has seemed like people have been able to style on him a little bit from that outside. So we got to see if he's made those adjustments. The Julio Arce fight comes to mind, where it seemed like Arce was getting the better of him, and then boom, head kick, changed the entire course of the fight, wobbled him, put him away, finished him. The kid knows how to follow up on a shot. Killer instinct is on point for Song Yadong. Another thing that we kind of tend to see, and this is a little bit, again, we're eyeballing it. I don't have numbers or stats to back this up, but people that lose a title fight sometimes tend to lose their way a little bit, right? Like, they don't always rebound immediately coming off of a failed title shot. Sometimes they can kind of spiral, lose themselves a little bit, struggle a bit in their next fight because, damn, I wasn't there. I was so close. Maybe I'm doing everything wrong. Like, they question themselves in the process. Like, that's a thing that we've seen with the mentality of some of these fighters sometimes. I'm curious how Cory Sandhagen is going to adjust coming into this fight. I'm curious if Song Yadong is going to be using his wrestling in this fight, because we are in the small cage, and I think that matters, especially when you're fighting a guy like Sandhagen that will make you chase him the entire fight if he's got the big cage to work with. If if Song can close the distance, cut the cage off, mix in takedowns, I think he's got a very clear path to victory in this spot. I kind of like dog or pass here, but I know it's a very trendy pick. A lot of people are on the Song Yadong side of things already that I'm seeing. Not that I shy away from it just because other people agree with me, but it always does give me the heebie-jeebies when everybody's on the same underdog every single time. Cory's proven that he belongs at this level. I think that Song can be at this level. He's just got to prove it on Saturday. So I would lean dog or pass here in the main event. How about you, Keith?
Yeah, so this is such a fantastic main event. The rest of the card, it's your buffet. This is your, like, that one really good thing at the buffet. Maybe it's the chocolate cake at the end or something. I love this fight. I'm delaying because I'm trying to find my notes. Somehow I didn't save my notes for the main event, so I'm kind of just winging this one. When I took down my notes, but I was trying to panic, see if I found it somewhere. I don't know if you caught me moving around and stuff. Cory Sandhagen, he's such a fun guy to watch. I mean, he's long and lengthy. He's so fluid. He has incredible movement. He can fight out of both stances so well, uses feints well to kind of keep you guessing. I love that he just touches. He understands, like, he doesn't have to hurt you with every point. He just touches, score points. And then if there's an opening, that's when you explode with a power shot. Actually, very similar to what like a Nate Diaz does, but they don't explode, probably because Nate's in my head. Don't explode all of that one shot. Similar to like actually what Justin Gaethje started doing against Tony Ferguson. They told him, hey, don't throw 100%, only throw 70%. I like that he goes to the body, knees inside. From distance, he can just work an outside game, kicks, calf kicks. And he's starting to develop some power. I mean, he's hurt some people. He's a solid wrestler, really good at just winning scrambles. Good get-up game. We saw that against TJ Dillashaw and Petrian. But the biggest thing about Cory Sandhagen is just how he blends everything together. He's not a striker. He's not a wrestler. He's not a grappler. He's not any of this. He's not a kickboxer. He's just that ultimate, when we've talked about years of a guy just adding pieces all together. And that's what he does. He blends everything together. He just got to keep attacking with all 8 limbs, with the knees, with the elbows. Leg kicks, go down low, go high, sidestep jab, snatch single, just kind of keep him guessing. Sandhagen is a well-rounded, Yadong is a well-rounded fighter, but much different. He's just this inside poise striking, high output, very technically sound, your traditional like kickboxing tight inside, throws accurate straight shots down the pipe. Short power, not a lot of tells, quick hands, nice snap, works behind a real crisp jab, follows through with nice power shots. I wish he'd go to the body a little bit more, kind of work the body, and then that'll open up his power shots even more, though. But he's really developing his shots, fast kicks, good calf kicks, very underrated wrestling. Can sneak in a takedown. Like, go back to the, whether you think he won this decision or not, but go back to the Marlon Vera fight. He probably won because he got late takedowns, winning rounds with takedowns. He's a good grappler. He's got 3 submission wins on his record. Hard to hold down. Good cardio. I mean, you go back to the Casey Kennedy fight. He won that fight because he kept moving harder and harder, and Casey Kennedy was slowing down. Fast hands, and the guy who just coming into his power. So really, really tough fight. Like, I like your underdog pick. And you really sold me on something. Like, you had me second guessing myself when you talk about the small cage or something that I don't really factor in too much. I probably should factor in a little bit more, especially for a guy like Sandhagen, where movement and distance is such a thing. It comes down to me, Sandhagen has to keep Yadong guessing with what's coming at him. Not just don't stand there and do an outside kickboxing game. What we said, just get him chase up in, make him overextend on a shot, react with a double, react with a reactionary double, react with a hook. Maybe get inside to the clinch, work a little inside the clinch, just kind of always mixing up, make it a full mixed martial arts fight. I think he does that. It's a step up in competition for Yadong. I do think Yadong is that level. Like, I think it's going to be one of these fights where we're going to have a war. We talked about Feely versus Algio as the fight of the night. That's like your undercard fight of the night pick, but I really think the main event to me is probably going to be a lock for the fight of the night. I think we're gonna have an absolute war where Sandhagen wins a split decision, but nobody feels lesser about Yadong losing like somehow in a loss he gets a victory. Like, in people's eyes, he improves.
It's like a learning moment, that level up fight.
Yeah, exactly. So give me Sandhagen by close decision.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. And I said, I feel like it's a dog or pass from a betting standpoint, just because of the way the line is. But the one thing that's kind of keeping me from making it like a bet on the dog type of spot is it seems like Song Yadong is so heavily reliant on that finish. Losing the Julio Arce fight, caught him in round 2. Okay. Obviously got Marlon Moraes out of there. Nobody really is going to second guess that. Lost the split to Casey Kennedy. Lost the decision to Kyler Phillips. He kind of won the decision against Marlon Vera, but Vera's a low volume guy. The draw with Cody Stamen, like, it's always questionable when this guy goes to a decision. And Sandhagen's only been finished once, and guess what? It was by sub. It's not by knockout. This guy has gone 25 minutes with Petr Yan. He arguably won the fight with TJ Dillashaw. Like, this man can go 25 minutes, no problem, keep the pace, keep the range, constantly using that high-level striking. And I don't know if Song is going to catch the man that hasn't been caught yet. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of all it comes down to me, is we got to see this kid deep in the fight. And Rick the Ruler calling the Song round 4 KO. I love it. I love the call. I really do. But I'm not sure if he's going to get stronger or if he's going to fade when the fight gets deep. That's the big question here for me. And I'm just going to wait and find out. It's a dog or pass from a bet for me, but the Sandhagen by decision, I think that'd be a great prop bet. You're probably going to get even money on that. You might even get plus money on that because of the fact that everyone will expect this fight to be a banger, potentially be a finish. I think that Cory Sandhagen by decision is probably a pretty sweet look, honestly, Keith.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that is UFC Vegas 60. Keith, thank you so much for spending 2 hours with me here talking about these fights. This has been an absolute blast. I think we uncovered some maybe hidden gems earlier on the card. Not so much on the main card. The undercard has some spots I think that might catch some people sleeping. On the main card, though, this is a tight card. Like Keith said, very difficult to call some of these fights, very close. Remember, guys, when it comes to sports betting, our biggest advantage is we don't have to bet every single fight. So if there's a spot that you're unsure on, if you're a spot that's tight, unless you're throwing $5 on it for entertainment, whatever, don't pile on. Just let it go. If it's a spot that you're not overly confident about, I think there's a lot of opportunities to pass and save those bullets for a later date on this particular card. Keith, again, just thank you so much, man. It was a pleasure to finally get to chop up these fights with you. Big fan of yours.
I'm sorry, I'm so long-winded. I actually, that was actually a cut down. That's actually a trimmed down version of what I usually say. Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
So shout out to all the people in the chat. Like, these people have been fantastic. Something that guys do on my show and they do here. I just love how respectful everybody was in the chat. Like, I didn't see one person, and you see this. I've seen this on other people's shows where someone says, "Oh, you're taking this guy. You're such an idiot. This guy's gonna win." Like, I love that people disagree with people's picks, but they like. Everyone had logic behind their picks, and you don't see people being that nice to each other a lot. So that was really, really cool. So thank you guys. And dude, I'm a super fan of you. You do a fantastic job. I know you crush it. And I know you've had so many wonderful guests on. So hopefully I could be half as good as some of the guys you had on here. So I appreciate your time. And I hope you bring me on again, man.
Keith, you were great. We will absolutely do this again. This was super fun. And I got to tell you, props to the chat, because I do have one of the absolute best chats in the game. And I think that's because we have not allowed people to be negative Nancy's. Like, for the most part, you've always got those internet trolls that'll sneak in every once in a while and try and make things dirty and grimy. But 98% of the people that hang out with me on this show are positive minded people that like to have a good time and understand that this is a game and we're supposed to have fun doing it. And they absolutely hang out and spread the positivity. And that's what it's about. That's what we do here. The people that are negative don't usually tend to last long because they end up being the outsiders that nobody wants to hear. So, we have a good time here at this chat. That's the whole point. Keeping it positive and moving right along, gambling on the best damn sport on the planet. Keith, you had some nice things to say, man, but plug yourself. Let the people know where they can find you, what you've got going on. And we'll hopefully send some new fans your way.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. So I have Instagram, but I think last time I posted was like 2 years ago. So don't even bother following me on Instagram. But the best thing to follow me is on Twitter. My name's right there at Keith Schillen MMA. I only do podcasting. I don't write for Sure Dog anymore. I only do the podcasting, but I do a preview show every week that comes out first thing Monday morning. I do it with the great Ben Duffy. And biggest thing is we do a recap show after every single event right afterwards, about 10 minutes or so after the main event ends. We'll be doing it for this card. Head over to the Sure Dog YouTube page if you want to jump in. It's like this. It's interactive. We talk to all the listeners and stuff. I've actually brought listeners on the show before, so we really try to make it a community. So if you guys are looking for recap right afterwards, I believe it's the most in-depth recap show out there. So, but once again, thank you for the time. Thank you guys to all the listeners. There was a lot of people sent some nice things in the chat. So thank you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, that is good stuff, man. People are definitely check him out. Check the show out. It's a good time. I love it. Folks, that's the show. Hit the like button on your way out if you can. Of course, we got content 24/7 around here on the show. Dana White's Contender Series on Tuesday. Guys, we talked about it. The regional scene stuff that I've been doing. Now is the time. Make sure you check out Spectation Sports. Peak. He is fighting on Tuesday, big time prospect. This is the opportunity we've been waiting for. Somebody that we're familiar with has made it to the show. Trevor Peak is a plus 170 underdog. We've got the back class. We've got the fights at Spectation Sports. Go check out the tape. Get ready. I think this kid's going to make some waves. Make sure you, like I said, use the code DieHardMMA. Get you a discount. All right, everybody. I'm going to send you out on a high note to quote the legendary Butterscotch. Bitches make some motherfucking money. Have a great week, everybody. Let's